Part 1. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1. Wu Yu. As the prince of the current dynasty, you actually did something so treacherous and unethical as to destroy human relations. You are the shame of our Dongyu kingdom for eternity. The eternal reputation of our Dongyu kingdom will be destroyed in your hands. If the late emperor were still alive, if he knew that you behaved like this beast, you would definitely be angry to death. There were sharp, exasperated sounds tearing at his eardrums all around. Wu Yu had a splitting headache. He tried his best to open his eyes, but his eyelids seemed to be hung with heavy stones, his brain kept roaring, and he felt exhausted. B/U003E. It must be a dream. I remember that I will be enthroned as emperor tomorrow. I have gone to bed now and need to get up early tomorrow. With his martial arts training, only when he is dreaming can his body be so difficult to control. Wu Yu. How long will you continue to act when you commit such a heartless mistake? Another sharp voice filled his ears like a cold wind, as if someone was screaming in his ear. The scene in front of me was a bit hazy, and I seemed to be on a bed. It's winter now, and with his martial arts skills, he still feels cold to the bone. In the midst of a headache and a blur, Wu Yu saw a disheveled woman sitting on the other side of the bed. Her face was extremely charming. The tattered clothes could not block her white and tender skin. Her long, messy hair was scattered on her chest. The white part is even more attractive. Such a beauty seems to be on the same bed as herself. But she huddled in a corner, looking at herself in panic, her delicate face already stained with tears. Fei 11. Wu Yu felt like a bolt from the blue. Concubine 11 was the late emperor's concubine. In other words, she was the woman of Wu Yu's father. Wu Yu didn't like this woman. Why did such a scene appear in his dream? In addition, he felt very cold, as if he was only wearing a pair of shorts. With a splitting headache, he fainted again. Wow! A basin of ice water was poured on his head. Wu Yu woke up with a start and found himself lying on the cold floor, with no clothes on. There were people everywhere, and there were ferocious, disappointed, and disgusting looks everywhere. This is not a dream. There was a bang in Wu Yu's head. Although he was still weak and mentally confused at the moment, he judged from the current situation around him that this was definitely not a dream. I will be enthroned as emperor tomorrow. There are colorful phoenixes carved on the bed, but it is not my bed. This is the Zai Hall, but the palace of Concubine 11. How could I appear here? Looking across the crowd, he saw the charming Concubine 11 surrounded by a group of palace maids and guards, already covered with a thick mink fur coat. According to the regulations of Dongyu Kingdom, ministers are prohibited from entering the harem, but so many princes and ministers actually appear next to him one by one, surrounding him tightly. Obviously something big happened. Thinking of what happened just now, Wu Yu knew he was in trouble. Not good. When he was about to stand up, he found that he couldn't do it at all. All the muscles in his body had lost their strength, and it was difficult for him to even lie down. Wu Yu. You are such a beast. Concubine 11 is your mother-in-law. You actually want to violate me. If you hadn't been discovered in time, I, Suqiao, would have lost all my face. Scandal, a peerless scandal. Late Emperor, this is a great misfortune for our country of Dongyu. A great humiliation. All the princes and ministers were heartbroken. I have said before that this Wu Yu is not worthy of being the prince at all, let alone the emperor of Suqiao. He is militaristic, has a perverse and violent personality, has no regard for the king's laws, and acts alone and arbitrarily. I don't learn how to govern the country, but I am obsessed with martial arts all day long. This is not what I, the emperor of Suqiao, should be like. The speaker was a prince with a high status in the Wu kingdom, and he had always disliked Wu Yu. Wu Yu couldn't help but sneer in his heart. The so-called militarism, the truth is that when Wu Yu was 14 years old, he led the Suqiao army to resist the attack of neighboring countries, and finally counterattacked, taking over a quarter of the neighboring country's territory. Suqiao, the name of the prince, shocked the world, and he was revered as the young god of war. The so-called not learning how to govern the country but being obsessed with martial arts is because Wu Yu has his own way of governing the country. He advocates ruling the country by force. He is only 15 years old this year and has already reached the 5th level of martial arts. In the whole country, and even in several countries, among peers, no one can compare with Wu Yu in terms of martial arts cultivation. In Dongyu Wu Kingdom, Wu Yu is the well-deserved #1 genius and martial arts monster. Some people even predicted that in his lifetime, he would reach the 10th level of martial arts and become the supreme master of martial arts. This kind of martial arts talent has been inherited from Dongyu Wu Kingdom for thousands of years. Among all the emperors, only the founding emperor had such attainments. In the words of the prince, it turned into a militancy. Humph. I don't agree with Wu Yu either. He has no destiny of being crown prince. If Prince Rong hadn't died young, how could it be his turn? Besides, his mother's status was low and she was born in a mountainous country. If it weren't for the favor of the late emperor, he would be the crown prince. How could it be his turn to be Wu Yu? This Wu Yu has the blood of the mountains, he is indeed vulgar and despicable, and his behavior today is worse than that of an animal. The person who spoke was a marshal in the army, but both in terms of martial arts and power, he was suppressed by Wu Yu. He had a son who was uneducated and incompetent. He made trouble in the capital of Wu State. He happened to kill the poor people and seize their daughters, so Wu Yu happened to see him. That guy also wanted to give the stolen goods to Wu Yu, but Wu Yu became furious on the spot, hung it on the gate of the capital, and exposed it to the sun for 3 days and 3 nights and died. From then on, the dandies of Wu State were frightened by the news. No one in the country dared to cause chaos. By now, Wu Yu roughly understood that he had been framed and caught on the spot. Someone must be leading this drama and using concubine 11 to prevent him from ascending the throne. So, who is it that can suppress him? To be honest, in terms of methods and martial arts, Wu Yu is unparalleled in the world. Since the death of the late emperor, no one has dared to disobey him. In addition, he hates evil and has a huge reputation among the people. Please ask Immortal Xuanhuan. A harsh sound made Wu Yu's brain buzz. Holy Immortal Xuanhuan, he. Wu Yu was stunned for a moment. He heard it right, it was the words Xuanhuan Immortal. Immortal Xuanhuan is an immortal. He is the protector of the country of Wu Kingdom in Dongyu. It is said that he is over 100 years old. He is an immortal, and immortals are different from mortals. Even if Wu Yu practices to the 10th level of martial arts and becomes a martial arts supreme, he is still far from the level of an immortal. The immortal protector of the country generally does not participate in mortal wars. The only thing they do is to protect all living beings and kill monsters. Generally, the immortal protector of the country will appear only when there are monsters that eat people within the borders of the country. Even the late emperor had great respect for the immortal protector of the country, and obeyed Immortal Xuanhuan's orders on many matters. Unexpectedly, he came. All the princes and ministers looked pious. Wu Yu looked up. At the entrance of Zai Hall, a shadow appeared at some point. It seemed to appear instantly. Wu Yu was completely unable to capture the trajectory of its movements. This Immortal Xuanhuan is probably the only person Wu Yu fears. The magic of Xuanhuan Immortal is that although it is rumored that he is over 100 years old, he still looks like a young man, with a ruddy face and a tall body. Although he has white hair and eyebrows, he cannot conceal his vigorous vitality. That is the awe-inspiring righteousness only possessed by gods. He wore a snow-white Taoist robe with many Bagua patterns on it. He held a whisk in his hand to keep evil spirits away. His eyes were as bright as stars, and all the evil in the world could not escape his eyes. Welcome to immortal Xuanhuan. The princes, ministers, palace maids, guards, and concubine 11 all bowed to the ground and knelt on the ground. I already understand what happened today. Immortal Xuanhuan's voice is very young, loud, majestic, and exciting. This is the voice of the gods. Please ask the immortal to punish the sinner. Concubine 11's face was filled with tears, her whole body was trembling slightly, and she looked very sad. Immortal Xuanhuan said, "Well, you can't use evil talents to govern the country." His burning eyes looked at Wu Yu, making Wu Yu feel a deep sense of guilt, and he almost confessed directly. "Wu Yu, you are making a big mistake this time. Immortality is not tolerated. I obey the decree of heaven and remove you from your position as prince and emperor. From today on, your martial arts training will be abolished and you will be sent to the army so that you can practice in the world and start a new life. Immortalism cannot be tolerated. In the name of heaven, the emperor is removed from his position, martial arts and monasticism are abolished, and the army is sent to exile. Miserable! Miserable! Miserable!" Upon hearing such punishment, the princes and ministers shouted, "The immortal is wise." Wu Yu calmed down instead. He neither cried nor fussed. All the anger was suppressed in his heart. In his heart, a huge raging volcano was formed, with countless lava rolling and flowing. It was the hatred of blood. This is fate. It's fate. Wu Yu couldn't help but smile bitterly. He understood. I have reached this point. No one in the whole country dares to rule me. Except for him, Immortal Xuanhuan. It turns out that he is the mastermind of today. Immortal Xuanhuan asked me to die. This is my fate, I have to die. Today, God will destroy me. Wu Yu couldn't help but laugh. Everyone thought he was crazy. How can you be so unbecoming and laugh so loudly in front of Immortal Xuanhuan? The ministers were even more disappointed. What a disaster for me, Suqiao. There were such words all around, but Wu Yu didn't pay attention. What he felt today was the collapse of the entire world. There is no need to accept these common sayings of mortals. Wu Yu, I'll give you the broken soul powder. Wow, what a ridiculous use of this word. I give you 10 years of hard training, and all your lofty sentiments will be wiped out. From today on, be a useless person. He will ascend the throne tomorrow, but his soul will die today. But looking at Immortal Xuanhuan now, he is still shining brightly, but in Wu Yu's heart, he has fallen from the altar. He is just the strongest mortal in the whole country. It turns out that this country has always been his. After taking Duan Hunsun and practicing hard for 10 years, all the pride and passion I had in my heart went down the drain. Late at night, Wu Yu was sent away calmly and sent to the army. Go be a human shield, cannon fodder. With his status, it would be a miracle if he could survive 10 days on the battlefield. You. Suddenly there was a familiar, warm voice. In the cold prison car, the dying Wu Yu opened his eyes. A woman was shaking the prison car constantly. Her eyes were bloodshot and her face was full of tears. Wu Yu. This dignified woman is Wu Yu's sister and has been named Princess Wu Yu. Although they have the same father and mother, Wu Yu respects and loves her the most. She is the person who understands Wu Yu best in the whole country. Wu Yu's mother passed away early, and now Wu Yu is the only relative left. How could this happen? How could this happen? Wu Yu trembled weakly in this cold winter, crying violently, his heart aching like a knife. Sister, it's not me who is causing trouble today, it's God who wants to kill me, do you understand? Wu Yu stretched out his hand from the prison car and held it with Wu Yu's pale hand. Even in the cold winter, he could still feel such warmth. Wu Yu, who had been calm all night, shed tears. I don't understand, but I believe you. Wu Yu shook his head painfully. That's enough. I have a clear conscience, it's just that the heaven is unfair, don't be sad. In the next life, I will be your brother again. Wu Yu suddenly trembled all over, and his soul-breaking hair was raging. Next life, next life. Hearing this word, Wu Yu's face turned pale, stumbled, and fell to the ground. At this time, the soldiers shouted loudly, pulling the prison cart, rolling away on the main road of the imperial city. The wooden wheels of the prison cart rubbed against the bluestone slabs, making a clicking sound, like a rapid heartbeat. Looking back, although Wu Yu was chasing the prison cart, she was thin and couldn't keep up, and the prison cart gradually went away. Voila! Suddenly, heavy snow fell from the sky. Looking up, countless snowflakes covered the city. On the beautiful winter night, there were only a few stars, like the eyes of God, examining the common people. Wu Yu was covered with snowflakes and left the capital of Wu. To contact the author, please add WeChat, Fengqinjiang. Or search /U003ch//U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 2. Dongsheng Shenzhou, 3000 Immortal Kingdoms. 3000 immortal kingdoms, all have immortals guarding the country. Dongyu Kingdom is one of them. /U003e. Late at night, Wudu, Imperial City, Harem. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. Rightward arrow circled M. Deep in the Xi Palace, the ministers have dispersed. There is only one red candle lit in the palace, the flames flickering, and the figures on the wall all have a ghostly flavor. 11 Fei has been fully dressed, and her enchanting face is no longer pitiful but cold and charming. Deep in her eyes, there is a hint of excitement. Thank you, Master, for what happened today. 11 Fei knelt on the ground and bowed devoutly. You are my disciple. For me, a cultivator, deposing an emperor and a prince is just a trivial matter in the mortal world. It is not worth mentioning. Tomorrow, I will pass on my order to let Xuanhuan ascend the throne. In the Xi Palace, there was only concubine 11. The voice of the immortal Haoshan came from nowhere. In the voice, there was deep indifference. Xuanhuan was the eldest son of concubine 11. Thank you again, Master. 11 will serve you well. Concubine 11's delicate body trembled slightly, and her beautiful eyes flashed. No matter what, Xuanhuan has my blood. Although he has no talent for cultivation, I can't let him live a mediocre life. It's good to be an emperor in the mortal world. If this were to be spread out, it would definitely be shocking news. Concubine 11's eldest son Xuanhuan was actually the son of the immortal Haoshan. The relationship between these two people is really confusing. Master, I am still worried. Wu Yu has been a rebellious son since he was young. He is quite resourceful. Although his martial arts have been abandoned and he has been exiled, I am always worried that he will have a chance to make a comeback. 11 Fei's eyes flickered with a trace of bloody light under the candle light. Don't worry, I have asked Wan Qing to kill him. I will make sure that he will not live beyond tomorrow. I never leave any trouble when I do things. Senior Sister Wan Qing. 11 Fei trembled. She was also afraid of that woman. In the dark places of the Dongyu Palace, people often disappear. It is rumored that there are big snakes in the palace that eat people alive. Crack. Crack. It should be when they reached a mountain road, the prison car shook violently. The soul-breaking powder had completely destroyed Wu Yu's foundation overnight. The 5th level of martial arts, forging flesh, grinding tendons, refining bones, strengthening the body, and changing blood. After the heaven-defying blood transfusion, Wu Yu possessed the strength of 50 war horses. He often charged into battle alone, capturing thieves and kings, and no one could stop him. But now, his flesh, bones, internal organs, and blood were all wasted, and he was powerless. He barely opened his eyes. It should be dawn. The sun had not risen yet. It was a little dark around. About 100 soldiers were escorting Wu Yu to the border. A tall, dark-skinned centurion stood by Wu Yu with a silent expression. The wheels rolled and soon entered a jungle. At this moment, the team was in chaos. Wu Yu was startled and looked up. The stone-paved path in the jungle was very narrow, so the team was stretched out for a long time. It was not yet completely light, and the situation ahead was not clear. Foul smell. This smell reminded Wu Yu of the time when he was fighting with a neighboring country. The other side used treasures to lure a monster to assassinate him, but he was killed on the spot. After revealing his original form, he realized that it was a spider spirit. Monster, it must be a monster, only then would it smell like this. Snake. Snake. A horrible, shrill scream came from the front. The whole team was in chaos in an instant. It's just a beast, no need to be afraid, follow me to kill it. The burly centurion next to him drew out his sword and shield and organized the soldiers to charge forward. This stabilized the situation, but the screams still did not stop, but became even more miserable. The speed of the monster was quite fast. When Wu Yu stood up from the prison car, his pupils shrank and he saw it clearly. It was a green snake about 5 meters long, with a body as thick as a tree trunk. The snake's tongue was more than 3 feet long. The black venom on its fangs kept falling down, and it could corrode large pits on the stone. The demonic aura was everywhere, very scary. Tear. During the process of the green snake charging, the soldiers' swords and spears slashed on its body, but there was no scar at all. On the contrary, the snake demon had already cultivated into a spirit, biting and hitting. In a few breaths, some of the 100 soldiers were swallowed alive, some were torn apart, and some were hit by the snake's tail 100 feet away and shattered to pieces. Run, run. It was like hell on earth for a while. Even the centurion was swallowed alive by the snake demon. There were less than 15 people left, and they fled in panic. As for the others, they were bloody under the ravages of the snake demon. It's looking at me. Wu Yu realized that although the snake demon was killing the soldiers, its attention was on himself. Sure enough, when the soldiers fled, it did not chase them, but swam towards Wu Yu, which showed that it had a goal. Between heaven and earth, there are mortals and immortals, and the purpose of the immortals is to kill evildoers. In the mortal world, there are beasts and birds that absorb the essence of heaven and earth, cultivate into demons, and harm people everywhere. This snake demon must be one of them, and it is obvious that it has been around for some time. The snake demon approached, and the fishy smell filled his nose, which was very foul. Huh! At this moment, Wu Yu never expected that the snake demon would actually transform in front of him. The huge green snake began to shrink, its skin and flesh changed little by little, and finally turned into a woman in green before his eyes. The woman in green had long hair like a waterfall, a narrow face, a sharp chin, and upturned eyes. Although her figure was graceful, she was full of snake spirit, which made people tremble. Wancheng. Wu Yu recognized her. She was a disciple of Haoshan Shangxian and often accompanied Haoshan Shangxian. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. This recognition was a huge shock to Wu Yu. Haoshan Shangxian is a national guardian. His duty is to kill demons and eliminate evil. I didn't expect that he actually raised a snake demon. In the past 10 years, a total of 1,368 people have disappeared in Wudu for no reason. There is no way to find out. They must have been eaten by Wancheng. But Wu Yu understood more clearly that the reason why Wancheng appeared here was that Haoshan Shangxian wanted to kill him. Wancheng fell on the prison car, and the gloomy demonic aura climbed up his body like a tentacle. Wu Yu, we meet again. Wancheng stretched out her bright red, narrow snake tongue, licked her dark red lips, and stared at the delicacy in front of her with her dark blue eyes. Seeing Wu Yu's expressionless face, she smiled grimly, "Today is your death day." You should thank my master for letting you go to the underworld to accompany your father. In order to kill him cleverly, my master wasted a lot of elixirs. Oh! No wonder my father was still in his prime, but he aged to death within half a year. The revenge for killing my father. The bloody hatred. The volcano of hatred surged wildly. Xuanhuan and Sci-fi are two beasts, it's not surprising at all. Although my father is an emperor, he has many women and children. The love that can be obtained from him is very limited. But my father is my father. He overcame all objections and made himself the prince. This is love. It's a pity that I can't repay you. Wanqing showed no mercy. Die. She stretched out her hands, and those hands probably had a huge force of 10,000 pounds. Enough to tear Wu Yu apart. Evil beast. Suddenly, a roar came from the sky, and a golden light flashed. Cultivator. At this moment, Wanqing's face changed horribly. Without saying a word, she didn't even care about Wu Yu, and rushed into the surrounding jungle at a terrifying speed, fleeing away. There was a big river not far away. Hiding in the depths of the river, Wanqing trembled all over and ran for her life. The change of the scene before death made Wu Yu, who was determined, stunned at this moment. Swish! A Taoist suddenly appeared in front of Wu Yu. The Taoist had flying black hair, deep eyes, and looked like a middle-aged man. He was very handsome. There was a sword in his eyes, and the sword was entangled all over his body. The dust was flying around. He held a golden long sword in his hand, which was extremely terrifying. Although there was still a distance, he could feel the sword energy soaring into the sky. I actually let this evildoer escape, and caused such a murder. The Taoist looked around, and the sword energy was awe-inspiring. Hope. Wu Yu reacted instantly. Wanqing escapes, the immortal arrives. Survive from desperate situation. /U003ch//U003E. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 3. The immortal naturally saw him, and with just a fingertip, the prison car was broken /U003E. Even though he was still severely injured and weak, Wu Yu still stumbled out of the prison car. Even if he climbed, he had to climb in front of the immortal. He kowtowed several times and said with all his strength, "Immortal, superior immortal. My name is Wu Yu, and I am the crown prince of Wu Kingdom in Dongyu. I was framed and fell here. Please accept me as your disciple." He raised his head and saw the immortal looking at him silently, without joy or worry. "Accept me as your disciple. I will spend my whole life repaying your kindness." Encountering such a catastrophe, the revenge for killing his father, the hatred for being deposed, and the hatred for innocent mortals in Wudu, this is the lowest point in Wu Yu's life. If this Taoist is willing to save him, Wu Yu will definitely retaliate with death. He has always been like this, a person who repays kindness with kindness and revenge with hatred. Master. Disciple Wu Yu, I bow to my master and swear here that I will respect my master for the rest of my life and repay the kindness of immortals. He knew that if he missed this time, he would be hopeless for the rest of his life. That immortal must have been shocked by his attitude at the moment. You have a good foundation and can enter the immortal sect, but you have been struck by the soul-ending dispersion, and there is no hope of practicing Taoism in this life. I cannot accept you as a disciple. If you want to be my Fengxia disciple, you must have at least a talent that is higher than that of 100,000 people. The immortal said with a cold expression. Wu Yu felt like a bolt from the blue. He should have expected it. However, he is not someone who gives up so easily. As long as the immortal is willing to let me stay by his side, I can be a cow or a horse, no matter what, When Wu Yu said this, his will was already blurred. The soul is broken, the soul is really broken. You are dead, but I, Feng Shui, don't want to interfere in mortal matters. That's all. I'll let you go to my immortal sect and work as a handyman for Yan Li. In the blur, Wu Yu felt himself flying through the clouds and mist. That's a method that even the immortals in Haoshan don't have. Successful. Wu Yu smiled even in his coma. Pop. This is the sound of burning wood, getting louder and louder. Immortal Haoshan. Concubine 11 is a bitch. With a bang, Wu Yu sat up from a wooden bed, sweating profusely, his eyes widened. I had a dream. Now that I think about it, I should have followed the immortal back to the immortal sect when I was saved from a desperate situation. Wu Yu looked around. He was in a wooden house. The wooden house was very simple but very clean. It had coffee tables, chairs, wardrobes, etc. There was a stove burning in the middle, giving Wu Yu a touch of warmth in this cold winter. Taking a deep breath, Wu Yu felt very comfortable even though his body was still weak. He noticed that there was something unusual in the air here, which nourished his heart. As expected, this is spiritual energy. There is absolutely no such rich spiritual energy in the mortal world. If I had practiced here since I was a child, I would have reached the 7th or even 8th level of martial arts today. He was happy in his heart. This must be the immortal section. However, his mind is mature and he also knows that there is no hope of cultivating immortality after being hit by Duanhuan-san. I remember that the immortal said that he seemed to be asked to work as a handyman to serve Yan Li. The so-called handyman should include raising animals, cleaning, chopping wood, watering flowers, etc. Tap. There were footsteps outside, and with a creak, the wooden door of the wooden house was gently pushed open. Wu Yu looked up, and what appeared was a hunchbacked old man, thin and a head shorter than Wu Yu, with a head full of silver threads. His face was covered with wrinkles, and his eyes were a little cloudy, but his expression was very serious, and he didn't seem to like Wu Yu very much. You're awake. Get up quickly, get dressed, and do things. The old man was very stern, staring at Wu Yu with a pair of cloudy eyes, which made Wu Yu feel a little hairy. Wu Yu looked at him and noticed that the old man had a red rope wrapped around his neck and was carrying something. It was a small iron rod 2 inches long. The two ends were golden, a bit like gold, and the middle was black, like black iron. This is the immortal section. Since you are here, you have to stay here for the rest of your life. If you want to live here, you must know the rules of the immortal section. When you are assigned to me, you must work hard and talk less. Obey the rules and don't cause me any trouble. The old man threw a pair of dark blue clothes on Wu Yu's body, and then entered the next room, not knowing what he was doing. After hearing this, Wu Yu roughly understood that it was the immortal who arranged for him to be a handyman here at Yan Li, and then he was arranged to be at this old man's place, and this old man took care of him. This old man doesn't seem to like me very much. When Wu Yu was confused, he quickly stood up and dressed. Now that the effect of Duan Hunsen has passed, he is quite awake, but his damaged body is like a withered tree, riddled with holes. After a while, the old man walked out of the side room, took out a bowl of slightly smoking soup, handed it to Wu Yu, and said calmly, "Drink it." Wu Yu was born in the palace, and he could tell at a glance that this was a ginseng soup that could only be made by very old ginseng. It was very precious. There were only 2 of them here, so it was obvious that the old man had made it specially for him. From this point of view, this old man, it should be cold on the outside but hot on the inside, and I don't hate myself. Thank you, old man. My name is Wu Yu. I don't know how to call you. Now that I've come, I'll make peace with it. Wu Yu has a very strong desire to see this legendary fairy gate. My name is Sun Wuodeo. The old man urged him to speed up. Uncle Sunday. Wu Yu quickly drank the ginseng soup, and he felt a little more refreshed. The huge loss during these times was also replenished. It must be the immortal sex elixir that has such an effect. Follow up. At this time, the old man Sun Wuodeo had already opened the door and walked out. Wu Yu quickly followed him out. After all, the other man had taken care of him, so he naturally had to obey his orders. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Wu Yu walked out of the door of the wooden house, opened his eyes, and was shocked. It was winter, and the mountains should have been covered with snow, but what appeared in front of him were countless green jungles, endless mountain peaks, and filled with fairy mist. In the fairy mist, there are vaguely countless grand, vast, and exquisite palaces and pavilions that are not even comparable to the Wudu Palace. This is simply a paradise on earth. It was exactly what Wu Yu imagined that the heavenly palace should look like. Wu Yu is now on the mountainside of a tall green mountain. There are several bluestone paths around it, extending to the top of the mountain, the foot of the mountain and other places. Sun Wuodeo was walking on a bluestone road leading to the foot of the mountain. Wu Yu followed behind, stepping on the moss-covered bluestone. The aura around him filled his nostrils, and he suddenly felt like he was in the heavenly palace, transcending the worldly world. Wonderland, Wu Yu was excited when he arrived for the first time. Sun Wuodeo walked quickly ahead and said, "Before I go to the immortal beast garden, I will only introduce it to you once. Our immortal sect is a Taoist sect, but it is a bit special, because many Taoist techniques here it has something to do with swords, so it's called Sword Cultivator. Our immortal sect is very domineering, and it's called Tongtian Sword Sect. Through the sky, through the sky." He was indeed domineering. With just one name and a surge of momentum, Wu Yu thought of the golden sword of the real master. It is true that the sword energy reaches the sky. The Tongtian sword sect dominates the land of several countries, and the sect is in the Bibo Mountains with the strongest aura among the countries. The entire Bibo Mountains are as huge as half a country, and there are countless cultivators practicing here. I want to become a true immortal, a true immortal. Mortals are not allowed to step into the Blue Wave Mountains. In the eyes of mortals from several countries, the Blue Wave Mountains are the palace of heaven. And now you are in these Blue Wave Mountains, on top of a peak called Yanli Peak. Sun Wuodeo's words made Wu Yu a little excited. It turned out that the real immortal sect looked like this. Sun Wuodeo continued, "You need to know that the Tongtian sword sect is very large, and the supreme leader is the real one you saw. The divine dragon is the most powerful golden pill immortal in the legend, he is already close to becoming an immortal. Then there are many elders, many older cultivators. It turns out that the one who saved him turned out to be the supreme leader here. In addition, there are many disciples. Among them, the most noble among the disciples are the core disciples. In addition to the core disciples, there are the outer disciples. The number of outer disciples is 100 times that of the core disciples. Actually, we are the most common people on the Bibo Mountains. We are the handymen. The monks are busy practicing, and we are responsible for taking care of their food and daily life, feeding the spiritual beasts, planting fairy spirits, cleaning the palace, etc. A core disciple, no matter what, there must be hundreds of servants. Each outer disciple has 10 servants. Wu Yu was very grateful to Sun Wuodeo. Not only did he take care of himself, he also opened up the real world of immortality to himself. Remember, at this moment, Sun Wuodeo turned around and said word by word, "As servant disciples, we must know the biggest rule, that is, we must not offend the immortals. Not even the outer disciples, otherwise if you cause death, not only you, but also me will suffer. This matter must be engraved in your heart." Wu Yu was born in the palace and knew how to position himself. When he came to the Tongtian sword sect, to put it bluntly, he was at the bottom. It has been changed from its position in Dongyu Wu state. Don't be discouraged. There is hope for the handyman disciples. Most of the handymen are young children who have barely passed the qualifications found by the ascetics of the immortal sect in the mortal world. This is how I came here. Here, you can understand the Taoism. And also have the opportunity to practice some methods. If the qualifications are really strong, you only need to reach the 6th level of the mortal body training realm before the age of 15, and then pass some tests. You can become a true disciple of the Tongtian sword section. It is possible in the future becoming an immortal. Back then, I was only one step away from entering the immortal sect and becoming an immortal. Sun Wudao seemed to be very unwilling to not enter the immortal section when he said this. His face looked heavy, probably because he was recalling the past. However, Wu Yu only remembered one thing. It seems that before the age of 15, one can enter this immortal gate by reaching the 6th level of the mortal body forging realm. 15 years old, 15 years old. He is 15 years old. In 2 months, he will be 16 years old. He will be missed forever. Unfortunately, I am useless. Wu Yu clenched his fists, otherwise, he must fight for this opportunity. If you don't become an immortal, how can you kill an immortal? I forgot to mention that the so-called mortal body forging realm is what you in the mortal world call the 10th level of martial arts. The 6th level is the 6th level of martial arts. If Wu Yu doesn't stop his soul from spreading, he will be sure to enter the 6th level of martial arts in a few days. What a pity! What a pity! Just like Sun Wudao, there is only one step away from becoming a true immortal. After descending the mountain peak, we climbed over the mountains and ridges in the deep mountains and wild forests, and soon reached another peak. The top is where you will do your work in the future, the fairy beast garden. Follow me up. Yes. Are there immortal beasts in the fairy beast garden? Wu Yu thought to himself. Wu Yu was a little tired after climbing up the mountain again, but he was still excited. After all, the shock this immortal sect brought to him was too great. After climbing thousands of moss-covered bluestone steps, the fairy beast garden was finally in front of him. However, at this moment, a sharp and long cry sounded in front of him, and a giant creature rushed into the sky in front of Wu Yu. In the sky, a snow-white giant bird was flying, with its wings spread out to be 2 meters long, black and white feathers, and red embellishments. Even this bird was full of fairy spirit, and it was obvious that it could easily tear tigers and leopards apart. Looking closely, this was the legendary crane. On the crane sat a girl in a white dress. Wu Yu could only see her back. Her black hair fluttered in the wind, her waist was slender, and her jade-white skin was white. She danced with the crane, and she was really the fairy in Wu Yu's heart. The fairy in the heavenly palace should have an out-of-this-world posture, not eating worldly fireworks. It feels like a Haoshan fairy. This must be a fairy. Any fairy actually gave Wu Yu a feeling of a Haoshan fairy, which was enough to show that he was very powerful and outstanding. And there should be many disciples like this fairy in the Tongtian sword sect. Wu Yu deeply understood that the immortal Haoshan was not the master of heaven and earth. There were many people in this world who could crush him. He was not an immortal. At this moment, the girl in white turned around. She had a beautiful face and was a peerless beauty, but her expression was cold, and her eyes were like pale butterflies that lost their breath in the dark. Just as the way of heaven was cold, most cultivators were like this. Bow your head. At this moment, Sun Wudao knocked Wu Yu's head hard. This is the peak master of our Yanli peak, the immortal Su Yanli. Not only is he a core disciple, but he is also a direct disciple of the Supreme Master. He has the highest status among all the disciples. How can you look directly at him? Wu Yu, remember, in this Tongtian sword sect, you have to bow your head to all the immortals you meet. Sun Wudao looked at him with burning eyes. If you don't bow your head, you will die. The last 6 words kept echoing in Wu Yu's ears. He could see that Sun Wudao was very nervous. It turns out that the immortal way is more ferocious. /U003ch//U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 4. Yan Lai Feng, Fairy Beast Garden B/U003e. There are more than a dozen cranes raised here. The cranes are so noble that they are unwilling to eat them unless they are delicious. They can even eat some immortal spirits and treasures belonging to the monks. The crane is a kind of spiritual beast, and spiritual beasts are creatures with the blood of fairy beasts. The legendary beasts are more powerful than demons, flying into the sky, escaping from the earth, and turning over rivers and seas. Such as the dragon, phoenix, unicorn, divine force, and so on. Sun Wuodao, who is this? When Wu Yu arrived here, a group of tall and burly servants with unkind expressions surrounded him. They are all young and strong, and have been training in this immortal sect for many years, and are full of energy. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. If they were in the mortal world, these handy men could be generals. Wu Yu was shocked in his heart. His name is Wu Yu. It is said that the master brought him back from outside. Sun Wuodao is the oldest here, but he doesn't seem to be respected. Headmaster? Haha, don't be ridiculous. A group of burly servants burst into laughter. One of them, who seemed to be the leader, stood up and said, since the headmaster brought him back, he must be a genius. Let's see what he has got. This person's name is Xuanhuan, and he is one of the leaders of hundreds of servants in Yan Lai Feng. He is in his 30s and is in his prime. It is said that he already has the strength of the 4th level of mortal body forging realm, internal strength. No, Sun Wuodao's slightly thin body stood in front of Wu Yu and said, he was poisoned in the mortal world and his foundation has been completely destroyed. Please don't embarrass him. Unexpectedly, when they first met, Sun Wuodao would protect him so much and would not hesitate to go against these burly handy men. Wu Yu remembered this kindness. If it hadn't been for him, he probably wouldn't have been able to avoid a beating today, since he was a newcomer after all. It turns out he is a waste. I have said something ugly before. No matter if he is a waste or not, he must do all the work. If one thing is missing, he will sacrifice his life. I, Zhao Chuan, will not sympathize with the waste. After all, Su Shangxian handed over the fairy beast garden to give it to me because you trust me, Zhao Chuan said bluntly. Don't worry, Boss Zhao. If he has one less thing, I will make one more, Sun Wuodao said. You old bone, can you do this? Zhao Chuan smiled coldly, then turned around and shouted loudly, brothers, watch out today. Several immortals are coming to visit Su Shangxian to take good care of their crane. An accident happened. Let your dog's life be taken away. Okay, Commander Zhao, everyone responded. He probably had something serious to do, and Zhao Chuan didn't bother to cause trouble for this old loser. Not long after Zhao Chuan's instructions, sure enough, in the fairy mist on the horizon, there was the sound of cranes flapping their wings. Several huge cranes descended on the crane garden, and several boys and girls came down from them. These immortals are all young, similar to Wu Yu. They are all wearing gorgeous and exquisite clothes, even more gorgeous than palace clothes. The men are heroic and powerful, and the women are graceful and graceful, with jade skin and snowy skin. They chat happily and make people envious. If there were no souls left, I could become one of them. Wu Yu stood respectfully on the side, lowering his head and not daring to look directly. If you look directly, these immortals will definitely punish you. Senior Sister Su, we are here to learn the immortal way from you today. Several immortals smiled brightly and headed to the Yanli Palace. The servants around them could not catch their eyes. Serve you well, serve me well. After they left, Zhao Chuan ordered loudly. Sun Wuodao didn't talk much and directly taught Wu Yu how to feed the cranes. Wu Yu probably knew the rules here now, so he studied honestly and worked diligently so as not to cause trouble to Sun Wuodao. In the evening, Su Yanli finished preaching, and those immortals were probably going down the mountain. Wu Yu and Sun Wuodao were like father and son, lying on a big blue stone. Wu Yu was asking about the details of this immortal sect, and learned a lot about the immortal sect, cultivation, and Sun Wuodao's personal matters. Suddenly someone heard a cry of surprise, and the two of them quickly looked around and saw a crane that was vomiting and having diarrhea, very manic. That's the guest's crane. When something like this happened suddenly, everyone panicked, even Zhao Chuan was trembling with fear. It happened that at this moment, the group of immortals came down and saw the scene at a glance. My Ling-er, a handsome young man ran out from among them, wearing black and white brocade clothes, with a jade pendant hanging around his waist, and a long gemstone sword behind him. Who was serving my Sidujin's crane just now? The handsome young man was so angry that he roared so deafeningly that Sun Wuodao was almost frightened and fell off the bluestone. In fact, the cranes fed by the handymen are all random. The cranes all look similar. Who knows who feeds them? And it has nothing to do with who feeds it. There may be something wrong with the food today. Wu Yu, it's you. At this moment, the pale-faced Zhao Chuan shouted. Who is Wu Yu? The handsome young man Sidujin said in a gloomy voice. The eyes of the crowd all fell on Wu Yu. Wu Yu was confused for a moment. After all, it was his first time here and he had no idea what was going on. You deserve to die. Sidujin immediately pulled out a long whip, and without saying a word, he rushed to Wu Yu's eyes. The long whip flew up with lightning speed. Before Wu Yu could see clearly, the cloth on his chest was whipped and exploded in a shocking way. Blood marks appeared, and he was hit by the huge impact and hit the blue stone, losing half of his life. I fed the crane. Sun Wuodao stood up, his eyes trembling slightly. Wu Yu heard this sentence almost when his will was gone. He didn't expect that he would help him like this after meeting by chance. He remembered the kindness today deeply, but he always took responsibility in doing things. This time Zhao Chuan saw that he was a waste and used himself to solve the trouble. Then this was a matter between himself, Zhao Chuan, and Sidujin, and had nothing to do with Sun Wuodao. It's none of his business. Wu Yu struggled to stand up, and pushed Sun Wuodao away with strength from nowhere. This was his principle of doing things, and he couldn't let others suffer for him. As for life and death, although he entered the immortal gate, he had no hope of becoming an immortal. He was destined to live a mediocre life, serve others for a lifetime, and live at the bottom. Wu Yu didn't actually have much expectations for such a day. Courage. I hate stupid people who have no ability but courage. The most. Sidujin laughed coldly, raised his long whip, and whipped Wu Yu like a poisonous snake. Suddenly, his skin was torn and bloody. Wu Yu groaned and half knelt on the ground. His chest seemed to be on fire, and it hurt like a fire. Forget it, Wu Yu is a cripple, and his death won't have much impact. We can't die. We are still in our prime and can still serve Su Shangxian. The servants comforted themselves. It's really terrible. Fortunately, it's not my mayor, otherwise I would be heartbroken. Sidujin is so angry, and it's understandable. These servants deserve to die. If we don't kill the chicken to scare the monkey, they won't be obedient, a female Shangxian said in a delicate voice. Crack. Sidujin wanted to kill people. The long whip hit Wu Yu's head and shattered it. Wu Yu completely lost consciousness. /U003ch//U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 5. Late at night /U003e. Sun Wuodao's eyes were slightly red. His thin body was kneeling on the ground. In front of him was an unevenly dug earth pit. The blood stains on Wu Yu's body had been carefully washed away. He was lying peacefully in the pit, wrapped in a straw mat. Wu Yu, although we met by chance, it was fate. This is a treasure passed down by my ancestors. It is only a few hundred years old and is just scrap metal. However, My father told me to pass it on. I have never had a wife or daughter in my life. I'll give you the precious iron at the bottom of Tianhe town. When you get to Xuanhuan, you can think of it more with this scrap of iron. He took off the red rope and put it around Wu Yu's neck, and placed the Tianhe town divine treasure iron on Wu Yu's chest. Then he knelt down and worshipped 3 times, covered it with earth, and erected a wooden tablet with the inscription, Tomb of Wu Yu, Prince of Eastern Wu. The Prince of Suqiao was brilliant for half his life. Chatting on the Bluestone today, he learned about Wu Yu's identity in the mortal world. Uncle Sun, I will guard you for 7 days and 7 nights. It is said that Su Yanli found out about this, scolded Sidujin a few times, and asked Sun Wudao to bury Wu Yu, so the days to come were considered free. At night, Sun Wudao leaned on the tree trunk and looked at the stars in the sky. Well. At this moment, the tomb of Wu Yu, Prince of Eastern Wu, fell down. What's going on? Sun Wudao remembered that he was buried quite deeply. Oops. Suddenly, an arm stretched out from the mound of soil. Sun Wudao was so frightened that he took 3 steps back, turned pale, and sat down on the ground. In front of his eyes, the mound of soil was turning, and a second hand appeared, and then pushed aside the mound of soil. Wu Yu's face returned to ruddy color and his energy and blood began to flow. He crawled out from the mound of soil. He looked at Sun Wudao with wide eyes and said in disbelief, Uncle Sun, I'm not dead. Why did you bury me in the soil? I was almost suffocated to death. He couldn't laugh or cry. However, the scar is still there, and it did hurt a lot when I pulled it just now. You're not dead, Sun Wudao was shocked. He knew that Wu Yu was seriously injured, but he was not dead. This is also a miracle. Of course. Just these few whips can't kill me. Wu Yu just felt like he had slept. Good. Sun Wudao stood up and showed a rare smile. Come, let's have a drink to celebrate that you're not dead. He had hidden a jug of fine wine for decades. Today he spilled half of it in front of the tomb and kept the other half, just in time to avoid getting drunk. After drinking, the 2 of them lay under the stars and on the black soil. Wu Yu, do you hate Sidujin? Sun Wudao asked. Hate, I want to kill him, Wu Yu said frankly. The indifferent attitude of those immortals regarded them as nothing more than grass, and their lives were worse than cranes. Don't hate, mortals can't fight with immortals, Wu Yu, promise me, Sun Wudao said seriously. Wu Yu didn't know how to answer. They are the pride of heaven, and they are born to dominate us. We are mortals, just ants. They can easily trample us to death, so you must not hate them. The more you hate them, the harder it will be for you to survive. Good. Sun Wudao took care of him for many days when he was in a coma, and today he blocked other handymen for him. When he was taken the blame, he was willing to take his place. Wu Yu remembered this kindness in his heart, so he could no longer worry him. Back then, I was just a little short of having the chance to become an immortal. If I succeeded, I wouldn't regret it for the rest of my life. Sun Wudao sighed as he looked at the stars in the sky. That was the biggest regret in his life. However, this is also what Wu Yu regrets now. He can understand this feeling and is only 1 step away from becoming an immortal. Where's your Tianhe town's divine treasure iron? Sun Wudao stared at his chest with wide eyes, extremely shocked. Only then did Wu Yu realize that he had put the red string around his neck, but the small iron rod was missing. Maybe he fell into the tomb. Let's look for it. The 2 searched for an hour but couldn't find it again. The little iron rod was completely gone. Finally, he fell to the ground exhausted. Sun Wudao smiled bitterly and said, that's it, it's just scrap metal. If you throw it away, throw it away. You are still alive, which is more important than anything else. Wu Yu was exhausted. With the sky as his quilt and the earth as his mat, he fell asleep. In his dream, He actually saw a giant Optimus pillar. The giant pillar soared into the sky, reaching into the sky and into the endless underground. It was majestic and domineering, filled with countless fairy mist, and the golden light of the sky-supporting giant pillar shone, shocking the soul. On it are several large characters. Ruyi Golden Cudgel. Every word was like a mountain, pressing on Wu Yu's head. Shocking, big shock. What is this Tianzu? Wu Yu didn't know yet that he was in a dream. Boom. Then, the 5 big characters of Ruyi Golden Cudgel changed into countless small characters, starting with, Indestructible Body of Vajra. After cultivation, it can penetrate the sky and the earth, kill 8,000 heavenly palaces, and break through 10,000 hells. Bronze head and iron bones, the body is like 10,000 gold, no weapon of the gods can harm the body, no immortal calamity of heaven can destroy the body, no one in the sky or on the earth can die or be destroyed. From now on, there are tens of thousands of words in the formula, but Wu Yu clearly remembers only the first 1,000 words. Summon as, Vajra Indestructible Body, the first level. I am the great sage of the heavenly palace and the immortal realm. I will defeat the Buddha in the battle between the heavenly Buddha and the immortal realm. Those who are destined to pass on my mantle will go against heaven and destroy heaven and earth. Finally, a vast, domineering, and sharp voice roared and echoed in Wu Yu's mind. Crack! Wu Yu was so frightened that he sat up. It turned out to be a dream. It was already dawn and the scorching sun had risen very high. Next to him, Sun Wudao was roasting a rabbit. He was sprinkling spices on it and the aroma was overflowing. When he saw Wu Yu woke up he brought hot water in a bamboo tube with his wrinkled hands and said, "It's early in the morning, drink some water." This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Wu Yu was still intoxicated by the huge shock from before. The giant pillar of the sky, the golden cudgel of wishful thinking, the indestructible body of the King Kong, and the last paragraph were so overbearing and shocking that my mind is still roaring to this day. He didn't even hear what Sun Wudao said to him. "Uncle Sun, I'll go back first. It's not far from their wooden house, just over a low mountain." The reason why he wanted to go back in a hurry was because Wu Yu unexpectedly discovered that he remembered the formula for the indestructible body of the King Kong. And it is clearly engraved in my mind and can't be taken away. He had just been injured yesterday, and Sun Wudao couldn't see it through his clothes. But in fact, Wu Yu found that the wounds had healed. He was as if he had been reborn, and his whole body was in perfect condition. Although it was not yet certain that the damage to Duan Hunsen had been repaired. But you only need to try it to understand, so Wu Yu couldn't wait and wanted a quiet environment. Okay, Sun Wudao nodded repeatedly. After arriving home, Wu Yu asked Sun Wudao to rest first. He returned to his room and tried to recite it. Sure enough, he memorized this incredible and extremely complicated formula one by one. The first level of the indestructible body of Vajra can be practiced in the body-forging realm of the mortal body. It is the strongest and most profound method in the celestial realm. Where is the immortal realm of heavenly palace? Who is the great sage equaling heaven and the victorious Buddha? Wu Yu was puzzled. He knew that the world was very big, and there were more than a dozen countries surrounding Dongyu Kingdom. Zhao State in the South Mountain, Qin State in the North Peak. I just don't know where the heavenly palace is. But these are not important for the moment. What is important is that he guessed that he might have been reborn after death and received good fortune. The excitement was certainly unprecedented. However, he needed to be sure. He then slightly adopted the martial arts techniques of the Suqiao royal family and tried it, and it actually worked. If he wasn't afraid of attracting attention, he would probably scream at this moment. Because this means that the damage caused by Duan Hunsen has been completely recovered. Although you need to start from scratch, at least there is hope for practice. Even if he cannot enter the immortal sect, he will still have the opportunity to work hard in 100 years. I, Wu Yu, endured the humiliation and endured the heavy burden and was finally reborn. I don't know how much bitterness there is in this sentence. The Ruyi golden cudgel, the sacred iron at the bottom of Tianhe town, this mantle inheritance probably comes from Uncle Sun's little iron rod. This is Uncle Sun's thing, I want to share it with him, and we can cultivate this indestructible body of Vajra together. Wu Yuzhen wanted to find Sun Wuodeo. As soon as I had this idea, I suddenly had a splitting headache. Sure enough, I got good fortune. But this good fortune doesn't want me to share it with Uncle Sunday. Maybe he is worried that I will spread it. Wu Yu was speechless at this point. After all, this was something from Sun Wuodeo, and Wu Yu couldn't return it to him. He calmed down. Uncle Sun is 100 years old. He is already very old. No panacea will probably allow him to continue practicing. Thinking of this, he gave up the idea of letting Sun Wuodeo practice together. However, his dream when he was young was to enter the Immortal sect and become a disciple of the Tongtian sword sect. If I can complete this step, he will definitely be very happy. His time is short, and I must not let him have any regrets. From today on, I will fight for 1 month to enter the Immortal sect. On the Blue Stone, Sun Wuodeo talked with him about his dream when he was young. He was 1 step short of it back then, which was naturally his deepest regret. An extremely strong desire arose in Wu Yu's heart. He wants to achieve enlightenment and become an immortal. He wants revenge and restoration of the country. The Dongyu Wu kingdom belongs to him, passed down by his ancestors, a kingdom of 10,000 years. Sun Wuodeo talked about some details of practice today. The 10th level of martial arts is the immortal body forging realm, which is called the body forging realm for short. There are 10 levels in the bodybuilding realm, which are bodybuilding, muscle grinding, bone refining, inner strengthening, blood transformation, orifice breaking, mind concentration, rebirth, immortal transformation, and spiritual connection. The first level is bodybuilding and muscle building. The flesh and blood will be refined and become as strong as a horse. After success, the body will be refined and have the strength of a war horse. The second level is to sharpen the muscles and meridians. After completing the training, your combat power will soar, with the strength of 5 war horses. Then the bones are tempered, the internal organs are strengthened, the blood is exchanged against the heavens, and then the 2 meridians of Ren and Du are opened, and the acupuncture points of the whole body are broken. Finally, the spirit is condensed, and the spirit and flesh are unified, reborn, and then go up to the next level to reach the level of immortal transformation. Prepare to become an immortal, and finally gain the power of ghosts and gods. After gaining power from gods, you will have the power of 2,000 war horses. At that time, 1 person could stand up to thousands of armies by himself. He was the 10th level of martial arts, the supreme martial god in the world. This is the realm. But in the immortal way, the realm of divine connection is just the foreshadowing of the immortal way. After the mortal body forging realm, there is the chi condensing immortal root realm, referred to as the chi condensing realm. It is said to be related to condensing mana and planting immortal roots. Haoshan immortal, as well as all core disciples, such as Su Yanli, at this level, it's really overwhelming and omnipotent. However, the most powerful one is still the Supreme Master, Golden Pill Immortal, who is above the chi condensation realm. Thinking of that person, Wu Yu's eyes burned hotly. If you can become his disciple, you will be able to fly to the sky. /U003ch//U003E. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 6. After Wu Yu came back to life, in order to avoid trouble, he asked Sun Wuodao to spread the news that he was alive. While the servants on Lifeng sighed at Wu Yu's tenacity, the news also reached Xuanhuan. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Xuanhuan may have given Wu Yu a month of rest and recuperation because Wu Yu was killed by other outer disciples. In this way, Wu Yu had the opportunity to wholeheartedly pursue the dream he had longed for in half his life. Uncle Sun, I'm going to Greenleaf Valley to walk and relax every day. Wu Yu set off early in the morning, and sometimes even woke up earlier than Sun Wuodao. This Wu Yu, after suffering a great disaster, has become much more agile. Sun Wuodao watched Wu Yu quickly disappear between the mountains and forests, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. He didn't care much, as long as Wu Yu could relax himself and forget the hatred, it would be fine. That's right, Wu Yu didn't tell Sun Wuodao about his good fortune. Firstly, what he longed for most was the only chance to enter the Immortal Gate in a month, which was the biggest dream of Wu Yu and Sun Wuodao in life. However, Wu Yu was not very sure for the time being. After all, there was only 1 month. He was worried that he would disappoint Sun Wuodao. Secondly, Wu Yu wanted to show his strength on that day and surprise Sun Wuodao. This old man has taken good care of himself these days, so Wu Yu wanted to see Sun Wuodao's pride. That might be the most important day in Wu Yu's life. The scorching sun had not risen in the early morning, and Wu Yu's clothes were already wet with sweat. He searched between the mountains and forests, leaping like a monkey among the trees, so that his limbs and flesh were fully exercised. One day, almost no time was wasted. He. The sound of heavy breathing rose and fell in the mountains and forests. Wu Yu used his hands and feet to run swiftly. He didn't care that many branches and leaves on the road left blood marks on his skin. You can vaguely see that in the surrounding spiritual energy, fine golden threads gathered and melted into his flesh and blood. When the sun rises, the golden spiritual energy is even more. Wu Yu's body is always strong. Bang! He fell from a 2-meter high tree without paying attention, and was covered in mud. Keep going. The only chance. Wu Yu suffered too much for this moment, and he knew that all this was hard-won. He got up and continued to practice with sweat on his forehead. This Vajra indestructible body is really mysterious. The first level alone is divided into 10 layers, with a total of 10 gates. The Dongyu Emperor Sutra that I practiced at the beginning was just a secret book. It directly recorded the methods of the 10th level of martial arts, but it was not divided into 10 gates. Compared with this Vajra indestructible body, the first martial arts method of my Dongyu Wu kingdom is just dregs. The first level of the mortal body forging realm is forging flesh. In Vajra indestructible body, the first level of the method is called Vajra forging flesh. Wu Yu is now officially practicing according to this Vajra forging flesh. The intensity is huge, but the effect seems to be huge. Especially Wu Yu himself has experience in the 5th level of martial arts, so the progress is very rapid. As the name suggests, the body forging realm is to forge the body. The body needs to be tempered before it can be forged, especially the first level of the body forging realm, which requires huge tempering. Every day, Wu Yu rushed through the mountains and forests, running around like a monkey, or diving into the riverbed, bearing the pressure of the river water, holding his breath and sneaking, punching under the water. Or standing under the waterfall, letting the endless heavy water hit his back. Or punching a giant tree with a diameter of 3 feet like crazy. Day after day. Vajra forging flesh is the entry point to all this. It is very hard and the process is simply unbearable for ordinary people, but Wu Yu's tenacity is beyond imagination. During the hard training time, he always remembered entering the Immortal Gate and fulfilling his and Sun Wuodao's dreams, and always remembered the revenge of Dongguo. Remember the faces of Haoshan Shangxian and others. There is not much time left. Charge. God-given Vajra, forge my flesh and blood. At noon, Wu Yu rushed to the top of the mountain, sweating under the scorching sun, punching the rocks on the top of the mountain. The so-called diamond must be forged through thousands of hammers. I don't have much time, so I must work 10 times harder than others. If others throw one punch, I will throw 10 punches. Pot, pot, pot. The boulder kept shaking on the top of the mountain, day after day, and cracks gradually appeared. Wu Yu's hands and feet had long been worn out, but in the broken flesh and blood, new flesh and blood were born. In the flesh and blood, strands of golden spiritual energy shuttled. Especially when the sun was the hottest, there were more golden threads. Not only on the fists, but all over the body were wounds. These wounds brought burning pain, but for Wu Yu, who fell into a crazy situation, this was nothing at all, especially when he dived to the bottom of the river with wounds. The pain was even more terrible, and he gritted his teeth and persisted. If you don't hone your will, how can you become the supreme martial artist? If you don't become the supreme martial artist, how can you become an immortal? I want to become an immortal. I must die 9 times before I can be reborn. High-intensity training brings extreme hunger. Wu Yu eats a lot of wild beasts in the mountains every day. Unfortunately, there are not many treasures found in the mountains. The real treasures in these Bibo mountains belong to Tongtian sword section. If I become a disciple of Tongtian sword sect, I will be eligible to enjoy those resources. At that time, I will definitely progress faster. This is also Wu Yu's motivation. He knows that there are many rare treasures in this world, which are beyond his current realm. Boom! 5 days later, the huge rock exploded in front of his eyes. Break! A roar shook the world, and the air in his chest burst out, and he felt transcendent. Under the scorching sun, it seemed as if the fire of the sun had burned on his body. Between heaven and earth, rich spiritual energy rushed into his body from the wounds all over his body, forging flesh and blood. At this moment, Wu Yu completed the transcendence and entered the first level of the body forging realm. In the body, strands of golden spiritual energy gathered in it, condensed in one direction, and finally formed a palm-sized character on Wu Yu's back. Golden words. Power. The feeling of power returned to the body. Vajra forging flesh, finally completed. Wu Yu, shirtless, wore a pair of black trousers. He stood on the top of the mountain. Although his body looked thin, his muscles were very condensed. There was a faint golden light flowing through it, converging on the golden character on his back. Roar! Wu Yu roared for the first time to this endless world. He is back. He returned to the first level, but the feeling was completely different from the last time he reached the first level. In terms of strength alone, it is equivalent to the strength of 3 war horses, which is 3 times that of the first level of ordinary body forging realm. At the same time, there are 2 unexpected effects. First, the Vajra forging flesh. The flesh is tough, just the first level is like this. When I cultivate this Vajra indestructible body in the future, will it really be copperhead and iron bones, invulnerable to swords and spears? This is what Wu Yu is most looking forward to. After all, even immortals are flesh and blood. If I am copperhead and iron bones, invulnerable to swords and spears, who can be my opponent? Even if I stand, others can't hurt me. Second, my blood and flesh recovery ability is also better than that of ordinary people. I have suffered a lot of injuries in recent days, but without herbs, it seems that they have recovered on their own. I don't know if I will really be immortal and reborn with a drop of blood in the future. Several times the strength, several times the body toughness, several times the blood and flesh recovery ability. Although it is only the first level of the body forging realm, Wu Yu's blood and chi are now more magnificent than he could imagine. After practicing the second level of the method Vajra tendons, even the tendons and veins will probably become as strong as diamonds. Wu Yu had a hunch that he probably only saw the tip of the iceberg of the tip of the iceberg of the mystery of this Vajra indestructible body. He did not rest at all and started practicing the second level of Vajra tendons. The second level of the body forging realm, grinding tendons. Grinding tendons is slightly different from forging flesh, focusing on tendons, so the practice method is also different, but more difficult. However, Wu Yu has the experience of reaching this realm, and today his heart is stronger and his method is more profound. Although there is not much time, he has made great progress. A few days later, Wu Yu reached the great completion again. His tendons were honed to be stronger than his flesh and blood, just like steel ropes, but not only hard, but also terrifyingly tough. The tendons are also the root of strength. After reaching the second level of the bodybuilding realm, Wu Yu directly possessed the strength of 10 war horses. I just reached the second level, but I didn't expect that my strength has reached 1/5 of the previous one. For Wu Yu, the indestructible body of diamond was so exquisite that he knew he had really got a treasure. Now under the scorching sun, in addition to the refined and explosive flesh and blood, there is also a dense network of golden tendons like a giant net all over the body, but all this is just the beginning of practice. The third level method, golden flame bone. You need to practice until your bones are like gold, pure and pure. The golden bones are the frame of the body, the blood and bones are fused, and the spiritual energy gathers. When the bones can produce golden flames, it is considered a great completion. The first 1,000 words of the first level of the entire indestructible body of diamond are considered as the forging and preparation of the body. From flesh and blood, to tendons and veins, and then to bones. Wu Yu did not think much about the future for the time being. But he knew that if he could reach the level of Supreme Martial God in the 10th level of martial arts, he might not be afraid of even the immortal Xuanhuan at that time. It took a total of 11 days to reach the second level of the body forging realm. Tongtian Sword Sect announced the specific date of the menial assessment. After careful calculation, there were still 21 days left. Wu Yu himself did not have much hope, but now he really thinks it is feasible. The 6th level of the body forging realm, normally, has the strength of 100 war horses. If I have the strength of 100 war horses, others will think that I have reached the 6th level and am also qualified to participate. The more you forge, the greater the increase in strength. In order to prepare for the battle that day, Wu Yu also reviewed his previous martial arts. It is rumored that there are Taoist arts in the immortal way, and the immortal Xuanhuan knows Taoist arts, which is simply incredible. The 10th level of the body forging realm is still immortal, and it is temporarily impossible to practice Taoism. In addition to Taoism, there are martial arts in the mortal world. The body forging realm of this immortal sect is actually the martial arts of the mortal world. Martial arts are divided into low grade, medium grade and high grade. After coming to Tongtian Sword Sect, Wu Yu knew that even mortal martial arts have the level of the best. He has the resources of the Dongui royal family and has learned a lot of martial arts. The strongest one is the secret book of the Dongui royal family. Although it is a medium-grade martial art, it is very famous and is called East Sea Whale Slaying Sword. It is said that this martial art was learned by an ancient martial arts master who fought against the waves in the East China Sea and killed a giant whale. The Dongyu Kingdom is located on the shore of the East China Sea, so it inherited this martial art. However, with Wu Yu's current level, he cannot exert the power of the East China Sea Whale Slashing Sword as before, so he reviewed a low-grade martial art Tiger Roaring Dragon Fist. Although this is a low-grade martial art, it is the most lethal fist among the low-grade martial arts, with the power of dragons and tigers. In addition, there is a footwork called Monkey Ghost Step. Once, Wu Yu rushed into the army of tens of thousands with the Monkey Ghost Step and cut off the head of the enemy general with the East China Sea Whale Slashing Sword, and the whole country cheered. The martial arts that were once proficient are now naturally very smooth and natural. The combat power has increased greatly. Until late at night, Wu Yu was still honing the skill and footwork. Puff puff puff. A huge tree, under the impact of Wu Yu's tiger roaring dragon fist, broke in the middle, and then the cracks increased, and finally fell down with a loud bang. Pa pa. At this moment, the sound of applause came from the side. Oh no, I was too immersed in cultivation and forgot to pay attention to my surroundings. Wu Yu was shocked and looked over quickly. In the dark jungle, 6 burly figures broke through the darkness, grinning and walking towards him. /U003ch//U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 7. Boss Zhao. This Wu Yu is obviously dead, but he broke this tree at this moment. It's only been a few days. He must have received an incredible blessing in our Yan life peak. A man with a big mole on the corner of his mouth. The wretched handyman said to the middleman Zhao Chuan B/U003e. Very good, there was deep excitement in Zhao Chuan's eyes, but he was not in a hurry to show it. At this moment, everyone had already walked in front of Wu Yu. What are you doing? Wu Yu narrowed his eyes and looked at them, especially Zhao Chuan. Wu Yu had never forgotten what happened a few days ago. It was Zhao Chuan who made him take the blame, causing him to almost die. We are just curious, aren't you useless? Why are you so capable again? Could it be that you sneaked into our residence and stole our cultivation method? Zhao Chuan is a real villain, and he does everything in a clear way. Wu Yu knew very well that they had seen his huge changes, so they would definitely have doubts and even covet him. Wu Yu, you shameless thief, if you know what you are doing, return what you stole from me as soon as possible. I won't argue with you. Zhao Chuan's eyes were burning, with deep greed hidden in them. He has been in this immortal sect for a long time, but there is no hope of becoming an immortal. If there is a chance, he will definitely fight to the death to win it. First, I didn't steal. Second, I have nothing to give you. Wu Yu knew that Zhao Chuan was at the 4th level of the body forging realm, 2 levels above him, and twice as powerful as him. It has the strength of 20 war horses. Boss Zhao, kill him and it will be over, said another stout handyman next to him. In your words, I'll give you a chance to make meritorious deeds. Go ahead. Zhao Chuan slapped him on the head. To be honest, he didn't have much patience. You can only feel at ease when you have something like good fortune. Thank you, Boss Zhao, the strong man charged in quickly. His energy and blood were so majestic that he had the strength of several war horses. He could break a tree with one punch. Snort. This man was full of flaws. Wu Yu didn't want to waste time and rushed forward suddenly. The flesh and blood exploded with strong force. He flew up and kicked the strong man in the chest. There were several clicks. The strong man's sternum was sunk and he screamed. He flew out upside down, rolled around on the ground several times, screamed, and lost half of his life. So strong, Zhao Chuan quickly checked the strong man's injuries. What kind of fortune did you get to be so powerful? At the moment when he was confused, the 4 remaining people around him joined forces to attack Wu Yu. Although they were in the same realm, Wu Yu cultivated an indestructible body. It was basically okay to take a punch from them, but they only needed to hit Wu Yu with one move. Everyone spurted blood and flew back, each one had their arms and legs broken, and they couldn't get up for half a year. Now you. In the blink of an eye, only Zhao Chuan was left in Wu Yu's fiery eyes, while the others were wailing on the ground. It feels so good to be happy and happy. Since God has given me a chance to be reborn, why not take revenge? The Zhao Chuan in front of him almost killed himself and wanted to take away his destiny. How could he give in at this time? Cold sweat broke out on Zhao Chuan's face. It wasn't that he felt that he was no match for Wu Yu, but that Wu Yu's attacks were simple and rough, which frightened him a little. Tiger roars Dragon Fist. Hold back your fist and charge forward, 3 steps in total, each step using strength from the ground. On the 3rd step, Wu Yu was like a tiger descending from the mountain, with majestic momentum. He suddenly roared and let out a tiger roar, which made Zhao Chuan's ears roar. The most terrifying thing was that the punch burst out and was right in front of Zhao Chuan's eyes in the blink of an eye. However, Zhao Chuan was not an energy-saving lamp. In the blink of an eye, he took out a long sword from nowhere and stabbed Wu Yu. Do you think that I, Zhao Chuan, can be the steward of the fairy beast garden because I am a vegetarian? He already had several ways to kill Wu Yu in his mind. Kill him, everyone was filled with hatred. Wu Yu, you killed your compatriots with cruel methods and deserved death. Today, I, Zhao Chuan, take your life on behalf of Sushangxian and clean up the family. Zhao Chuan's face was cold, and the long sword made of fine steel in his hand shone with cold blood in the dark night. Light. Like a bone-chilling cold. Zhao Chuan has the 4th level of the body forging realm and has reached the realm of inner strength. All the internal organs have been forged, the breath is long and the flesh and blood are essence. The sound of tiger and leopard thunder can be heard from the chest while breathing, and the whole person is as if the fierce tiger and cheetah in the mountain forest stares at his prey with a pair of cold eyes, and the stainless steel sword is its sharp teeth. Awesome. If he were at the 5th level of martial arts, it would not be difficult to defeat this opponent, but looking at it now, Zhao Chuan has at least 20 war horses, twice as much power as himself. This idiot belongs to Sun Wuodao. Maybe Sun Wuodao knows that he has been blessed. Commander Zhao, we will kill him today. Tomorrow we will throw Sun Wuodao off the Black Intestine Cliff and let him break into pieces. His body will be fed to the crow. I didn't expect that this cripple would be able to turn around, but it was his misfortune to meet Boss Zhao. Boss Zhao should not kill him easily first. The rest of us cannot swallow this breath, and we must make his life worse than death. Wu Yu quietly wrote down these words, and he realized that what was supposed to be a lesson to his opponent had now evolved into a fight to the death. Ding ding. Zhao Chuan's stainless steel sword trembled in the dark night with murderous intent. Zhao Chuan's special skill should be the middle-grade martial arts Rainstorm Pear Blossom sword that can only be practiced by the top handyman disciples. The middle-grade martial arts is a national treasure in our Dongyu kingdom, but in this Tongtian sword sect, it is actually they were eliminated and given to handymen. Zhao Chuan is twice as powerful as me, and he has middle-level martial arts skills. Wu Yu didn't expect to encounter him. This battle was quite dangerous. Perhaps the only way to survive was to fight to the death. Die. At this moment, without saying a word, Zhao Chuan dodged and wielded his stainless steel sword to kill. For a time, there were many sword shadows and murderous intent was everywhere. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. So cruel. The sword pierced Wu Yu's eyebrows. Hide. He was unarmed and could only dodge. He used the ape ghost step and quickly retreated. In this mountain forest, the ape ghost step was more effective. Although the long sword was full of murderous intent, it attacked several times. They all allowed Wu Yu to escape in danger. This cripple really doesn't have much ability. He can only dodge. Zhao Chuan endured the severe pain and cursed with disgust on his face. I've been a grandson for a long time, but I just haven't grown up yet. Swish. Several surrounding branches and leaves were cut off by the sharp edge of Zhao Chuan's long sword and flew out, leaving the leaves scattered on the ground. The thick cut on the bull's mouth is very even, showing Zhao Chuan's superb sword skills. Pear blossoms are flying. Zhao Chuan pursued him relentlessly, and the shadow of his sword turned into a pear blossom. A sudden attack came, and his eyes were filled with swords and sword shadows. Wu Yu used the ape ghost step to the extreme, and it was still thrilling several times. Zhao Chuan was completely chasing after him, and he did not fight back. If he had the opportunity, Zhao Chuan would probably have his arm cut off if he fought back. Snort. Zhao Chuan was not in a hurry. He took the lead at this moment and tore a wound under Wu Yu's ribs. For a moment, blood oozed out and the bones were visible. It can be vaguely seen that Wu Yu's bones are already flowing with golden light, and they have become vaguely golden bones. They only need to give birth to golden flames. This golden bones is considered complete. Okay, Wu Yu is dead. Zhao Chuan and others were extremely happy. Die. Zhao Chuan fought violently, turning the heavy rain pear blossom sword into a downpour, covering Wu Yu's head. During the protracted fighting for the next half hour, Wu Yu's body was again covered with several wounds, and the blood was stained red. Wearing black clothes, Zhao Chuan and the others laughed ferociously. From beginning to end, Wu Yu did not cry out in pain, as if he was not the one who was injured. In fact, Zhao Chuan himself did not expect that he and Wu Yu could fight for half an hour, and he was secretly surprised at Wu Yu's resilience. He must be killed. Thinking of this, Zhao Chuan accelerated the fight, opening and closing his swords widely. Amidst the exclamations of Zhao Chuan and others, they almost killed Wu Yu. He didn't notice that a golden light flashed in Wu Yu's eyes. One sword through the heart. Zhao Chuan raised his sword, and the stainless steel sword was very stable. Like a poisonous snake, he found an opportunity and suddenly stabbed Wu Yu in the heart. This time he was 100% sure. At this moment, a golden light suddenly appeared in Wu Yu's eyes, making Zhao Chuan squint his eyes. At the critical moment, Wu Yu shouted angrily and made an incredible move. He held Zhao Chuan's stainless steel sword with his left hand and blocked the opponent's piercing. The long steel sword stabbed, drawing deep blood marks on his palm, and almost severed the palm. Unfortunately, although it pierced the flesh and blood, and even severed some tendons, it could not break Wu Yu's bones. Deep in the flesh and bones, after a night of fighting, Jin Yan was born. Qinglong goes to sea. The moment Wu Yu held the opponent's sword with his left hand, he had only one chance: either you die or I die. A roar shook billions of oceans like a dragon's roar. Oops. Wu Yu clenched his right hand into a fist, and used the second move of the tiger roaring dragon fist to gather all his strength, even half an hour's accumulation, and exploded at this moment. His right fist seemed to turn into a green angry dragon, flying at Wu Yu. The next moment Yu grasped the opponent's long sword, he hit the opponent's head hard with a click. Zhao Chuan's eyes widened, and he let go of the hilt of the sword with his right hand and fell softly to the ground. Fight in close quarters and kill with one blow. He. Wu Yu was breathing heavily, his left hand was almost cut off, and his body was still full of scars. The stainless steel sword was still in his hand, and blood was dripping down. Soon, the golden bone will reach the third level. Today's thrilling battle gave Wu Yu the test to reach the third level. He had experience himself, and Zhao Chuan added fuel to the flames, so he succeeded. This was also the key point for Wu Yu to kill Zhao Chuan in the end. He didn't want to kill anyone today, but Zhao Chuan wanted to kill him. He has no choice. In the Tongtian sword sect, of course, servants cannot kill each other, otherwise they will be severely punished. All this happened in an instant. Before, Zhao Chuan suppressed Wu Yu. Suddenly, Wu Yu tried his best to block the sword with his flesh and blood palm, and Zhao Chuan fell down with one punch. Boss Zhao. All the handymen were even more confused. Their faces were all pale and they looked at Wu Yu in disbelief. Zhao Chuan, whom they usually admired, died in the hands of Wu Yu, a cripple. Wu Yu. You are finished. If you kill Boss Zhao, according to the rules of the Tongtian sword sect, you will be executed, a handyman said tremblingly. Unexpectedly, these words led to death. You just said that if you kill me today, you will throw my grandson off the Black Intestine cliff to feed the crows tomorrow, right? Wu Yu took hold of the stainless steel sword and stepped forward. I. The handyman saw the murderous intent in his eyes, and immediately trembled all over, saying, No. I didn't say that. Wu Yu used this sword to kill them one after another. In this world, killing is inevitable. For Wu Yu, he would kill two types of people. First, there are treacherous and evil people, such as the snake demon. Secondly, those who have deep hatred against him are like the Immortals in Xuanhuan. The second type of people, once they are merciful, will often bring themselves greater disasters, and these errand boys are obviously of this type. After finishing, Wu Yu looked at the blood all over the ground. The world is cruel, and you need to have the power to protect yourself before you can live with dignity. The strong prey on the weak, an eternal theorem. It works for both humans and animals. Of course, as long as he leaves, no one will know that he is the one who killed the people here. Great sage equal to heaven, fighting Buddha, thank you for giving me a new life. At night, Wu Yu buried the fine steel sword. When he is stronger, he can dig it out and use it to perform the domineering East Sea whale slaying sword. At this time, he noticed that although there were no herbs, the wounds on his body were recovering, and it was estimated that they would be healed in a few days. Today, a blessing in disguise allowed me to find the threshold of the third level of the body forging realm, and I need to continue to consolidate it. There was too much blood on his body. He spent a long time sorting it out, bandaging the wounds, and covering up the past before returning to his residence. It was late at night, with insects chirping everywhere. Wu Yu stood at the window of Sun Wudeo's room and could see the old man sleeping soundly through the gauze. I hope he can enjoy his old age from now on. If I can enter the immortal gate, it may be the biggest surprise in his life. This time, I must live up to his high expectations. Wu Yu clenched his fists. It was late at night, Wu Yu was a little tired, and went back to his room to sleep. He didn't see that a girl in a white dress had been following him for a long time. She was beside him as early as when he met Xuanhuan. But she was a fairy, Xuanli, how could Wu Yu know that she was beside him? /U003ch//U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 8. Wu Yu. In the early morning, Sun Wudeo came over in a hurry /U003e. What's wrong? Wu Yu was about to go out. Today he will fully practice the golden bone. I heard that several people from Zhaochuan were killed in Yan Lifeng last night. There is a commotion now, and all the servants are frightened. It is said that there are demons from outside who have sneaked into the Bibo Mountains to take revenge on these righteous people. Oh. I see. The world is in chaos. Sun Wudeo looked at Wu Yu seriously and said, with the chaos these days, you'd better not go out to relax. There isn't much time to rest, so you stay in your room to recuperate. He was indeed very kind to him. If it weren't for the good fortune he gave him, Wu Yu would not have had this opportunity to be reborn. I still want to go out for a walk, don't worry. I'm nearby, at the back of the mountain, of course, Wu Yu insisted. In fact, he wanted to explain the current situation to Sun Wudeo several times, but after thinking about it, he still wanted Sun Wudeo to see him show off during the assessment. Being in the spotlight makes him proud. He arrived at the back mountain. Between the mountains and forests, the sun rises in the east. The mountains are surrounded by blue waves, and even if you stand high in the sky, you can't see the end. Countless fairy mist filled the air, even showing the colors of the rainbow under the sunlight. Countless cranes are flying, and countless rare birds and animals are galloping among the mountains and forests. The rays of immortal sword light danced in the void, turning into flowers or beasts. In the place where the scorching sun is the hottest, Wu Yu only wears a pair of trousers and forges golden bones at the highest point. Under the scorching sun, the young man's long hair was tied into a bunch, and golden light occasionally appeared in his delicate facial features. After the first level of physical training, his flesh and blood were reborn, and his new skin was very white and clear, with golden fluorescent light flowing at the same time. After training again, his temperament changed and he was already a beautiful young man with shining golden light. The natural stern aura in his eyes is very eye-catching. In particular, the golden swastika on his back shines even more brightly. All the sun's rays condense into a beam, pouring into his body from the golden swastika. Diamond-forged flesh, golden tendons all over the body like a network, and golden bones giving birth to golden flames. Now Wu Yu can be considered as the indestructible body. After the success, the combat power increased greatly again. I have just reached the 3rd level, but I actually have the strength of nearly 50 war horses. It is equivalent to the 5th level of the body forging realm. Now I am already on par with what I was in Wudu. No, I should be more powerful than I was in Wudu, sometimes it's stronger. Standing under the scorching sun, Wu Yu couldn't help but smile. In total, only more than 10 days have passed, and he has reached this level. Although it has something to do with past experience, it is undeniable that the indestructible body is indeed extremely heaven-defying. Wu Yu deeply understood that he had received an amazing inheritance. Inheritance and creation will definitely be coveted by others in this immortal section. It seems that except for the entrance examination, I have to keep a low profile at other times. I just don't know if I can be comparable to the golden elixir immortal if I practice to the depths. Wu Yu's current dream has gradually changed from ruling the country and bringing peace to the world, and spending his life as a soldier, to wielding a sword and living a life of freedom. With more than 10 days left, Wu Yu plans to hit the next level. With his current strength, it is not enough to participate in the entrance examination, and time is still tight. Although I have inherited it, it is still crucial for me to enter the immortal section. Resources, connections, etc. are all in great need. Wu Yu is the prince of a country, and he understands these principles. The 4th gate of indestructible body is used for the 4th level of inner strength in the body forging realm. Internal strengthening means strengthening the internal organs, which are the foundation of qi and blood. The center of the body is very critical. The qi and blood are completely different before and after internal strengthening. In the mortal world, only after inner strength can one become a strong martial artist. This 4th gate is called 5 internal organs and 5 gods. Put the god of hardware into the 5 internal organs. They are red gold god, purple gold god, platinum god, and black gold god. 5 steps in total. The method of 5 internal organs and 5 gods is unbelievable. After success, the internal organs seem to have 5 gods sitting in control. Qi and blood are flowing continuously. The body is like the world, and the internal organs are as strong as wild beasts. They are even stronger than bones. 5 internal organs and 5 gods. First starts with the breathing method. The breathing method recorded in it turns out to be a hot and sharp gas as sharp as a blade. The gas tore through Wu Yu's internal organs, crisscrossing them. The pain is unbearable. Xianman, you only have one chance. This technique was really difficult to practice, and Wu Yu had the idea of giving up along the way, but all reality supported his perseverance in rushing forward. Even if his heart was cut like a knife and he was constantly being shattered, he persisted. In terms of resilience, Wu Yu is now in a terrible state. The indestructible body requires endless tempering and extreme pain before it can be successful. Although the golden blade only lasted for more than 10 days, it tore the internal organs hundreds of millions of times, and each tear was accompanied by rebirth and strength. At the back, the internal organs were honed by Wu Yu and became as brilliant as gold. They were as strong as the internal organs of a giant whale in the deep sea. Even with a single breath, the violent energy could break a tree. The inner strength is the real strength. Every time he breathed, there seemed to be tigers and leopards roaring in it, thunder exploding in it, and the mere human form looked like an ancient giant beast. The golden swastika on the back is even more gorgeous. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Buzz. Finally, Wu Yu exhaled and saw a strong wind blowing in the forest in front of him. The trees were trembling and fallen leaves were flying. The fourth level of mortal body forging realm, 5 internal organs and 5 gods, is finally achieved. After success, the first feeling is not strength, but hunger. Extreme hunger. Eat. Running in the mountains and forests, Wu Yu easily killed a wild boar weighing 2,000 kilograms, roasted it over a fire, and enjoyed it for a long time. He actually finished the beast completely. Looking at the remaining skeleton, Wu Yu didn't expect it at all. My appetite is actually so huge. A cultivator needs huge supplements. I have no resources now, so I can only rely on ordinary things to supplement them. It is said that if you take some fairy spirits or even pills, you can go without eating for 10.5 months. And you are still very powerful. Finally succeeded. Wu Yu's melancholy during this period is now gone. After his body has grown stronger and his heart has become stronger, he smiles a lot more, giving people a feeling of spring breeze when he speaks. In terms of temperament, I am afraid that no handyman disciple can compare with him. If he were not wearing the clothes of a handyman, he would probably be considered an outer disciple. Unexpectedly, just after reaching the 4th level, I actually have the power of 130 war horses, which is more powerful than the average 6th level of the body forging realm. The strength is strong, the body is more powerful, and the ordinary swords, I'm afraid it won't be able to break my flesh and blood. It's impossible to say you're unhappy. Now, Wu Yu was extremely confident about the entrance examination. It seemed that there were still 3 days left before the examination. Wu Yu didn't plan to practice for the past 3 days. In the past month, Sun Wudao had been worried every day when he saw him going out. Now that he finally succeeded, he no longer had to worry. He dug out the fine steel sword and placed it in his residence, preparing to join the battle in 3 days. Everything is ready. You finally figured it out. Come with me to the fairy beast garden tomorrow and work hard. Sun Wudao was getting old and his eyesight was blurred. Wu Yu had changed so much during this period. He walked like a tiger and a giant beast, but he didn't notice it. As a handyman, it's better to stay safe. Zhao Chuan was too messy, so his life was lost after that incident. Sun Wudao often lamented, and used it as a negative teaching material to teach Wu Yu. The entrance examination will be in 3 days. Do you want to go and see it? Wu Yu asked during the meal. Look, of course, this is the most important day for Sun Wudao. He goes there every time. After all, this is his dream. Even if he sees other lucky people stepping into the immortal gate, he is happy for them. Oh, Wu Yu felt relieved. Wu Yu didn't know that Su Yanli had already reached the core of the Bibo Mountains at this time. The main peak of the Bibo Mountains is called Tongtian Peak. It is said that it was not called this name before. Later, the Tongtian sword sect discovered this place, established a sect here, and named the straight peak that towers into the clouds Tongtian Peak. On top of Tongtian Peak, among countless 9-color fairy mist, the outline of a huge fairy palace is vaguely visible. That is the Tongtian Fairy Palace, where the master handles affairs and practices. There are countless dangers hidden around Tongtian Immortal Palace. Giant beasts are flying in it, swords are flashing in it, and thunder and lightning are even turning into long snakes dancing. This is one of the forbidden areas of Tongtian Sword section. Without the permission of the master, even if it is none of the protective elders can enter directly. Now, the girl in white dress Su Yanli came to Tongtian Immortal Palace. Master, Yanli wants to see you. Su Yanli's crisp voice came in. In the fairy mist, with her long skirt fluttering, Su Yanli is really no different from the fairy in the hearts of mortals. Just as Su Yanli's voice fell, the lightning in the clouds in front of him calmed down a bit, and a passage appeared in the clouds, leading directly to Tongtian Immortal Palace. In a blink of an eye, he entered Tongtian Immortal Palace. In the main hall, there are a total of 99 and 81 swords shining with runes on the surrounding walls. That is the magic weapon of the ascetic. Ding ding ding. Those swords were like trapped animals, struggling in a ray of light and shadow, but failed to fly out. I've been observing Zhao Chuan for half a month since I killed him. That's all about Wu Yu's situation. Su Yanli bowed his head respectfully. Master Feng Shui stood on a high platform with an abyss outside. He was thinking about the scene when he saw Wu Yu, and he was entranced for a moment. Master, how should I deal with it? Should I take away his creation? As the saying goes, ordinary people are not guilty, but they are guilty of having a treasure. You once taught me that the way of immortality is the way of robbery. Feng Shui turned around, his face instantly serious and majestic. Su Yanli was frightened and took 3 steps back. He said, Yanli, my way of Feng Shui is the first way in the Bibo Mountains. You have my inheritance, which is the first inheritance here, so why covet the fortune of the handyman disciples? Cultivate my way, for Master can guarantee that you will be able to enter the Golden Elixir Avenue and reach the height of being a master in this life. Su Yanli understood. She bowed her head respectfully, her beautiful eyes flashing with light of thought. When the Supreme Headmaster drank, it was an enlightenment for her. From now on, Yan Lizing will concentrate on cultivating Master's swordsmanship. Very good. My disciples must work with me and have the ambition to look down on the world. Although the immortal path is dangerous, we must be worthy of our hearts. If our hearts are clear, the road ahead will be smooth. The leader teaches the supreme way. In my Tongtian sword sect, whoever can obtain the fortune of the ancestors, let him go. If he can keep it and become a talent, that is his luck. If he can't keep it and lose his life, it is also what he deserves. You are an outstanding disciple, you need to consider it in your heart. If you want to seize the inheritance, you must seize the inheritance of the strong, that is the way of immortality. Disciple understands. You can withdraw. At the end, the Supreme Master waved his hand, and countless long swords around felt his immortal power and trembled continuously. At this time, Wu Yu was following Sun Wuodao and came to the fairy beast garden again. A month of recuperation had passed. According to the rules, he still had to work in the fairy beast garden from today. One day, Wu Yu and Sun Wuodao were chatting, and time passed. Suddenly, there was a crane calling, obviously a guest had arrived. The servants hurried to greet him. Wu Yu also raised his head, and suddenly his pupils shrank. It turned out that Sidujin and several other immortals had come again. Wu Yu, hide quickly, Sun Wuodao was anxious. After all, in Sidujin's eyes, Wu Yu should be a dead man. If he was seen by him, there would obviously be a fight. But it was too late. Perhaps Wu Yu was too dazzling among the chores, and Sidujin saw him at a glance. /U003ch//U003e. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 9. There are 4 Shangxian including Sidujin who came to Yan Lifeng this time of /U003e. Sidujin was wearing a black and white robe, and there was another man in blue who was taller and thinner, like a pine tree, stern and indifferent. As for the 2 women, they were extremely moving. Although Wu Yu held a high position in the mortal world, such moving women were rare. One of the women is tall and has a face like an iceberg. Although she is beautiful, people dare not approach her. The other girl in red looks cute, has a plump and exquisite figure, bright eyes and white teeth, and is charming. But when facing Wu Yu and the others, they still had a kind of aloof delicacy. Sidujin had a strong figure, jumped off the crane, and walked to Wu Yu in 2 steps. He looked at Wu Yu with wide eyes and a shocked expression on his face. I took action at that time and confirmed that his skull was broken, but he was not dead. How lucky was he, Sidujin found it incredible. Sidujin, the three people behind him came forward. When they saw Wu Yu, they were also stunned. This slave is not dead, the girl in red covered her mouth and shouted softly. Why are you not dead? Sidujin was a little unhappy. He originally wanted to kill the chicken to scare the monkeys, but now he discovered that the chicken was not killed. He was afraid that he would be laughed at by his friends. Wu Yu knew that he was no weaker than Sidujin, but his status was still different now. After some consideration, he felt that it was best not to cause conflicts at this time, otherwise he might not be able to participate in the entrance examination. He said, "Back to the immortal, the little man has a big life and struggled to survive. However, I still have to thank the immortal for showing mercy." Sun Wudao was nervous and trembling, but after hearing what Wu Yu said, he felt a little more relieved. He said quickly, "Sir, thank you for your mercy. Last time we were so bold that we failed to take good care of the crane. We will definitely not do it this time." Sidujin and the three people behind him looked at each other, and suddenly they all burst out laughing. Sidujin said, "Let the three of you see the joke. Sidujin, you are really not good. After being beaten for a long time, you can't even beat a slave to death," the girl in red said softly, then looked at her crane and said, "If it were my mayor who was killed by these slaves, it's so hard, I have to strip the perpetrator to pieces." She said these words in a delicate tone, which really made people speechless. This is exactly the devil's heart hidden under the face of an angel. When the girl in red said this, Sidujin lost his dignity. He had an idea, cleared his throat, and said to Wu Yu, "You hurt my linger last time, and we haven't settled the accounts yet. In this way, there is a lump of crane's essence here, and you eat it. I'll let you go today." What he was referring to was the excrement of the crane. For a moment, the three people behind him couldn't help laughing. "Sidujin, you are so vulgar." The tall woman couldn't help laughing. "Brother Sidhu is so excited," said the young man in blue. Sidujin said, "You three don't want to laugh, just have fun." On the other hand, the expressions of the handymen around him changed drastically, but they were helpless. "I will eat this essence." Sun Wudao was worried that Wu Yu could not control himself, so he quickly agreed. Although he had never experienced such humiliation in his life, he couldn't care less for Wu Yu. That deep love moved Wu Yu's face. "We met by chance, why did he treat me like this?" Ignore them. Wu Yu originally wanted to take the entrance exam before taking action, but now it seems that fate is going against him. He just didn't know if he would lose the opportunity to take the entrance examination if he resisted them today. "Wu Yu," Sun Wudao was shocked, but Wu Yu immediately grabbed him and took a few steps back. There was already golden light flowing in his eyes, as if a giant beast had awakened. "You dare to disobey my order." Sidujin was proud of his wit, but Wu Yu actually chose to resist, which made him furious. Poor Wu Yu, all the handymen looked at Wu Yu with pitiful eyes. "I escaped the disaster last time, but this time I am afraid I will be completely dead. It was that damn Zhao Chuan who harmed him." Sidujin just wanted to find an opportunity, otherwise he would not even be able to kill the handyman, and he would be so embarrassed. Especially since he was pursuing the girl in red, he must not lose his prestige. "Today I will send you to hell." Sidujin was about to take action. In an instant, a girl in a white dress appeared silently in front of him. Sidujin's eyes were dazzled, and he slapped her away. She hit a blue stone hard, and with a snap, the blue stone was knocked out several times. Road cracks. "Who?" Sidujin's face turned red and one of his teeth fell out. He was immediately furious, but when he took a closer look, the person in front of him was so frightening that he trembled and said quickly, "Senior Sister Su, why are you here?" Wu Yu did not expect that Su Yanli would appear. This was the first time he had seen this girl so close. In comparison, although the two previous women were beauties, Compared with this Su Yanli, both in appearance and temperament, they were both beautiful. It is the difference between a grain of rice and a bright moon. A light fragrance, refreshing and refreshing. This is Yan Lifeng, my territory, Su Yanli said indifferently, waving his hands. Sidu Jin, and the three of you, please don't appear in Yan Lifeng from now on. She was angry. Sidu Jin was in disbelief and said, Sister Su, this is just a handyman. This is my Yan Lifeng person. If you want to punish me, it's not your turn, Su Yanli said. Her tone was light and her voice was not high, but she had an undoubted power. In Wu Yu's eyes, she is the real immortal, someone who can be compared with the immortal Haoshan, who knows Taoism and can reverse yin and yang. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Snort. These four also have bad tempers. Sidu Jin took a deep breath, looked at Su Yanli, and said word by word, Senior Sister Su, my brother Sidu Minglang is 13 years old this year. He has reached the peak of the realm of mortal body training. The realm of divine connection must be achieved in you can be regarded as the supreme martial god in the world. This talent is probably even better than yours back then. The woman in red next to her said, it is said that the Protector Supreme Master is planning to accept Sidu Minglang as his disciple after he has condensed his energy. By then, his status will be no worse than that of Senior Sister Su. The status of the real person protecting the teaching is only lower than that of the real person in charge. Su Yanli opened her lips slightly and said with an indifferent expression, you are trying to intimidate me. I don't dare, I just said that casually. Sidu Jin sneered, touching his hot face. The group stepped on the crane, flew into the sky, and galloped away. When leaving, Sidu Jin's eyes turned to Wu Yu's face. Look at each other. Buzz, Sidu Jin was shocked, as if he had been shocked, and almost fell off the crane. It must be Su Yanli who is playing tricks. He definitely would not have thought that this was Wu Yu's impact on him. Sidu Minglang? At the age of 13, have you mastered martial arts and become a god? Su Yanli looked back at Wu Yu and Sun Wuodao, but he was thinking about other things and disappeared in front of his eyes in the blink of an eye, as if he had never appeared before. Thank you, Immortal. Sun Wuodao escaped and quickly knelt down on the ground. This time it was indeed thanks to Su Yanli's help, and Wu Yu also thanked her. But this Sidu Jin, Wu Yu was immersed in the joy of practicing and almost forgot about Sidu Jin's last murder. However, this conflict gave Wu Yu another thought. If there is a chance, he must let him go. Sidu Jin knelt down and begged for mercy. 13 years old, martial arts master, Wu Yu was still a little shocked just thinking of Sidu Minglang. When he reached the 5th level of martial arts at the age of 15, he was called a martial arts genius. Unexpectedly, there is a terrifying existence here who is 13 years old and at the 10th level of martial arts. Now that I am a handyman, if I am bullied, it will be troublesome to fight back. I must use this last chance to become a part of the Tongtian sword sect. It's late at night. Wu Yu, the entrance examination is tomorrow. Are you going? Sun Wuodao asked. Of course I went. My legs and feet are not very convenient, and the Dengxian peak is not close. How about we set off tonight? Sun Wuodao asked. In fact, he shouldn't go, after all, he is very old, but the entrance examination is his lifelong dream, and he does not want to miss it every time. Now that he is older, watching those young people become disciples of the Tongtian sword sect one by one, he also very happy. Very satisfied. No, I'll carry you. Wu Yu wrapped the stainless steel sword and hung it on his waist. When Sun Wuodao asked, he said it was a walking stick for walking on the mountain road tomorrow. The day has finally arrived. Although Sun Wuodao hesitated a bit, seeing that Wu Yu was still walking very vigorously after carrying him on his back, he didn't say much. Climb the Immortal Peak. The most lively place in Bibo Mountains today, whether it is the assessment of internal handyman disciples or the assessment of externally recruited geniuses, all are conducted here. If you can pass, it means that you will be destined to embark on the path of immortality. From ordinary people to ascetics. This is the first time Wu Yu has walked so far among the Blue Mountains. Today is a grand festival for the handyman disciples. Many people start setting off before dawn, but the real assessment actually starts at noon. You're feeling much better. Sun Wuodeo was also very surprised to see Wu Yu climbing over the mountains and carrying him on his back without feeling tired at all. I originally had the foundation of the 5th level of martial arts, but I was only hindered by Duan Hunsen. In fact, he was thinking that he was about to give Sun Wuodeo the biggest surprise. Even though he was calm inside, he was actually very excited when he imagined Sun Wuodeo's expression. Sun Wuodeo fell asleep on his back, so Wu Yu speeded up. At dawn, he arrived at Dengxian Peak. There were not many people arriving at this time. Most of the people who gathered at Dengxian Peak today were miscellaneous. Serving disciples. Tongxian Road, climbing Immortal platform. Disciples who want to participate in the battle must pass the verification at the bottom of Dengxian Peak, enter the mountain for assessment, and finally come out from the top of the mountain. This is the process of Tongxian Road, and then climb to Immortal platform at the top of the mountain. There is another assessment. No, the handyman disciples participating in the battle can directly go to the Immortal platform on the top of the mountain to watch the battle. On the Immortal platform, there are hundreds of thousands of viewing platforms, all of which belong to the servants. This is meant to encourage the servants to practice. As for the formal disciples of the Tongtian sword sect, they all have their own cranes. Watching the battle in the sky has a higher status. High, the effect is better. The height of Dengxian Peak is similar to that of Yanli Peak, but it is several times thicker and wider. Before Sun Wuodeo woke up, Wu Yu sent him to a good position. From this perspective, he could clearly see the battlefield below. Arrived. So soon, after Sun Wuodeo woke up, he looked around in confusion. He remembered that he had struggled to climb up here before, but he didn't expect that he would arrive today after taking a nap. Yeah, Wu Yu smiled slightly. This location is great. Sun Wuodeo seemed to be rejuvenated and said with excitement on his face, "Today, you can clearly see those geniuses reaching the sky in one step. I'll carry you here next time," Wu Yu said with a smile. He was also very excited. Today was the watershed of his transformation. Most importantly, today was the dream-fulfilling moment for him and Sun Wuodeo. More and more people came to watch the battle. There were at least 100,000 servants, and the crowd was bustling. It was said that many servants had passed the verification and walked into the Tongxian Road to prepare for the battle at noon. It was almost noon. Wu Yu said that he felt uncomfortable in his stomach. There was no convenient place on the Xiantai, so he needed to go down the mountain for a while. It's about to start. Sun Wuodeo seemed to want him to see the Battle of Xiantai. It's okay. I'm not very interested. You just watch it. I'll be back soon. Don't walk around, so I won't be able to find you when I come back. Okay, then I'll help you take the place. Wu Yu didn't worry about him walking around. After all, his legs and feet were not convenient now, and he couldn't go down the mountain. After leaving here, he went down the mountain quickly and reached the bottom of the mountain, ready to pass the verification. /U003ch//U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 10. The so-called verification is actually very simple. It is nothing more than reporting the name and which person it belongs to. There is specific information in the hand. Wu Yu is also recorded. He is exactly 15 years old this year. Are you at the 6th level of the body training realm? The person in charge looked up at Wu Yu with confusion. It was not that he wanted to embarrass Wu Yu, but that there was no information about his cultivation level recorded in Wu Yu's information. That's right, Wu Yu nodded. Go try it. It is now close to noon, and most of the handymen have basically passed the verification. It is said that there are more than 300 people who have met the requirements. Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Before the assessment, identity authentication and realm authentication are required. Behind the person in charge, there were 100 strong, full-blooded war horses. Each war horse was completely black, had a hot temper, and was breathing heavily. Now it was kicking the bluestone ground angrily, fearing that it would destroy the ground. Crushed. The war horses were tied with thick ropes and finally came together, and Wu Yu, under the arrangement of the person in charge, held the rope. Whether there really is a sixth level of body forging realm, the simplest way to verify is to directly compete with 100 war horses. Who is that? I don't know you. Some people didn't have time to climb the immortal peak, so they watched the verification at the bottom of the mountain. Wu Yu has been at Yan Lifeng all year round, and almost no one in the Tongtian sword sect knows him. Crack. The person in charge whipped away the whip, and suddenly it turned into shadows of whips all over the sky, hitting the horses. The horses were in pain and ran wildly. So strong. This whip made Wu Yu admire him in his heart. But the power of the war horses exploded, and there was a terrifying force on the rope. Hundreds of war horses in front of them set off fierce smoke, and the momentum was like killing an enemy on the battlefield. Return. Wu Yu was well prepared. He held the rope with one hand and planted himself on the ground with a horse stance. The muscles, tendons, and bones of his body complemented each other. Especially his 5 internal organs were pure and strong, possessing the power of a giant beast. Drink. Those hundreds of war horses were actually dragged back. It's done. The person in charge threw a red talisman to Wu Yu and said, "This is the red fire talisman. If your life is in danger, or you want to withdraw voluntarily, just crush it, and there will be a red light surrounding it, and the immortal sect disciples will save you." It turned out to be a talisman. Wu Yu held the red talisman paper. There were complicated symbols written on it. He couldn't understand it, but he could vaguely feel the power from the immortal way in it. It is said that this is something that only a powerful immortal can draw. He carefully hid the red fire talisman and walked into a cave at the bottom of the mountain. There were 3 big characters on the cave here: Road to Immortality. Entry assessment, the first level. This Wu Yu hasn't come yet. Sun Wudao looked around. A stout and fat handyman next to him occupied Wu Yu's position. It's already noon. From this location, you can see who is the first to break out of Tongxian Road. A battle on the Immortal Road and a battle on the Immortal Platform. Those who pass through will become immortals from now on. There were 100,000 handyman disciples around, all of them stretched out their necks, their heads moving but not daring to make a sound, quietly waiting for the start. In the sky, cranes were flying one after another, and on each crane was an official disciple of the Tongtian sword section. They gathered together in 2s and 3s and were condescending today, naturally watching the fun. But the most eye-catching thing is the person in charge of this assessment, the elder Xuanhuan. On the climbing platform, there is a white jade platform suspended in the air. Several formations are flashing at the bottom, as if the wind is blowing down and pushing the white jade platform into the air. There are 3 white jade seats on the platform. The middle seat is the largest. Sitting on it is an old man with white eyebrows, white hair, and white robes. His face is serious, not angry but powerful. This is none other than Mu Ge, the elder who imparts the power. The seat on the left was empty, but there was a girl in a white dress on the seat on the right, who turned out to be Su Yanli. Many of Yan Lifeng's handymen felt very proud when they saw Su Yanli on top. Senior nephew Yan Li, does Yan Lifeng have a good handyman this time? Mu Ge, the elder who teaches the martial arts, asked casually. He knew that with Su Yanli's temper, she wouldn't pay much attention to ordinary handyman disciples. There is one named Wu Yu, Xuanhuan said. What's so special about this person? Mu Ji was curious. I don't know. I just wanted to know how special it is, so I came here today to have a look, Xuanhuan said. I see, then I have to pay more attention, Mu Ji chuckled. Of course, even his smile was awe-inspiring. After all, this person is a truly important person in the Tongtian sword sect. Xuanhuan is here. There are 3 or 5 groups of cranes in the sky, and at one of the best locations, Sidujin and 2 other men and 2 women are here. Sidujin, what's so good about a group of handymen who are just starting out? We are the ones chosen by the Immortal sect directly from outside, and we are 10 times better than this group of handymen who have to be tested, the girl in red said proudly. Sidujin smiled and said, Huaqianyue, I have nothing to do anyway, so I came to watch their trapped beast fight for fun. The girl in red is named Huaqianyue. The tall woman in blue is named Lu Mixue. Another tall and thin man is Wang Yiyang. They are all geniuses in the mortal world, descendants of martial arts families. Especially Sidujin, whose family is a reclusive martial arts giant in the mortal world. 3 brothers of this generation were elected to the Tongtian sword sect, namely the eldest brother Sidukang, the second eldest brother Sidujin, and the most defiant third eldest brother Sidu. Clear. Sidujin, let's not be too proud. It is said that 3 of the handyman disciples this time have reached the 7th level of the body forging realm, which is 1 level better than us. 7th level, that's my big brother's level. Sidujin was extremely envious. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. It is said that the battle on Tongxian Road below has already begun. Let's guess which of these 3 will come out of Tongxian Road first. Step into this door, life or death is your fate. There is a stone tablet in front of you, with 8 big characters written in blood. Just looking at it makes your spirit roar and shocks your heart. The path of immortality is ruthless, and there is no turning back on the road to becoming an immortal. Another stone monument. Practice is plundering, only the strong can achieve justice. The last stone tablet is the tallest. Yes, practice is to plunder from heaven and earth. Only by being strong can justice be served. After experiencing ups and downs, Wu Yu can deeply understand this sentence. Now there are about 300 handyman disciples in the dark heart of the mountain. Because they are all competitors, there is some distance between them. The formal assessment will begin immediately. Sun Wudao is at the exit of Tongtian Road. There are countless immortals waiting there to watch the battle. For Wu Yu, who wants to enter the immortal sect, this moment is the most important challenge in his life. It is impossible to say that I am not excited. After passing this level, I am qualified to challenge Haoshan. He must go back to Dongyu Kingdom. At this time, someone was talking. That person is Zhao Danlong. It is said that he is at the 7th level of the body forging realm and has the power of 200 war horses. He is best at his mortal family's middle grade martial arts Zhao 13 swords. He is 14 years old this year. Following the discussion among the people, Long Chen saw a scornful young man. In fact, these 300 handymen are all mortal geniuses. Wu Yu is the oldest among them at 15 years old. Looking at it, some of them are estimated to be only about 11 years old. That one is Zhuhuo, who is also the 7th level of body training. It is said that he was born in the mountains and raised by a tiger. He is a natural fighter. He is a handyman of a core disciple. The core disciple liked him very much and passed him 8 moves to kill demons and the top step Phantom Snake Step. He is only 13 years old this year. What everyone is talking about is a young man wearing animal skins who looks at everyone like a wild beast. There are 3 people in total who are at the 7th level of the body training realm. There is also one named Qing Mang. She is a 12-year-old girl who has not yet grown taller. She has a pair of cyan eyes and is also a handyman of the core disciples. He was born as an ordinary person. It is said that he was 7 years old when he first came to the Tongtian sword sect, and he did not have any strength at that time. The martial arts he is good at are very powerful, including Yuga Mountain Sword Shadow and a little green light. Among them, a little green light is a footwork. Although they are powerful, Wu Yu just wants to become a disciple of the Immortal sect and does not necessarily need to be ranked first, so the relationship is not absolutely hostile. He also admired these young children, especially the little girl Qing Mang, who was at the 7th level of the body training realm at only 12 years old. However, Sidu Minglang is obviously the most powerful. Wu Yu just lamented that more than 20 disciples of the Immortal sect appeared in front of them, led by a young man in black clothes and black hair. He had deep eyes and was the most terrifying. He should be a core disciple. Evaluators, the road to immortality is about to open. On the road to immortality, you will encounter a total of 3 waves of attacks, all of which are powerful beasts that are about to turn into demons. They are extremely dangerous. Even my outer disciples cannot guarantee that they will be able to get through. If your life is in danger, crush the red fire talisman and we will save your life. The first paragraph scared many people, and many people began to turn pale. There are 300 people in total, and only the first 100 who break out of the Immortal Road can participate in the battle on the Immortal platform. Therefore, you'd better fight for the 1/3 chance. Remember, as long as you succeed in the assessment, you can embark on the path to immortality. From now on, you can sing to your heart's content and slay demons. If you can't even deal with hundreds of beasts, how can you slay demons? I, a disciple of the Tongtian sword sect, rule the roost with my sword. Now the time has come. You only need to remember one word, that is, kill. As the last word fell, the mountainside shook, and a gate lowered from the mountain wall in front, revealing a dark, bloody passage. The battle on the Immortal Road begins. There are only 100 places available. The passage is huge. 300 handymen rushed in, fearing to lose their chance. Wu Yu was not in a hurry. He understood deeply that those who rushed to the front on this road to immortality would often encounter head-on blows. Drawing out the stainless steel sword, Wu Yu moved forward in the middle. Swish! A large number of people went in, passed through the dark passage, and opened up before their eyes. They didn't expect that there was such a large space in the middle of the mountain. The light in front of them was dim, but they could see that there were many underground plants growing there. In the open heart of the mountain, 300 handymen spread out, gritting their teeth one by one and moving forward at high speed. Red-horned viper. As soon as I entered, someone immediately screamed and screamed. It can make even the 6th level of the body forging realm scream, so it is obviously a terrifying beast. Snake. This reminded Wu Yu of the snake demon Wancheng. Hiss. A head as big as a wash basin suddenly sprang out next to the underground plant, and the fishy smell hit your nostrils. It was a black snake with a triangular head. There was a blood-red sharp horn on the forehead, as sharp as a stabbing sword, and there was a dramatic poison. Looking around, there are probably hundreds of red-horned snakes hidden among the dense underground plants. This article is published by the official version of 17K. Please search for 17K and then search for the real name after clicking in. You can also add WeChat, Fengqinjiang. Or search for Feng Qingyang on WeChat. Crazy will send the update link directly to everyone's mobile phone every day. New book release, urgently need flowers and clicks. Please try to come to the official version, log in to read, and help Crazy rush to the new book list. As everyone wishes, the excitement of Swallowing Heaven record has just begun, and the final ending of Dragon Blood God of War is also coming soon. Starting today, Crazy will continue to update in high volume, and the two books will be carried out at the same time until Dragon Blood is finished and Swallowing Heaven record takes over the banner. \U003ch /\U003e